He saved a dying man with hands that shouldn't know how. Then his sleeve tore, and the classified tattoo underneath changed everything. The janitor they ignored? He wasn't just cleaning floors, he was hiding a past that could destroy them all. I'm bringing you a story about the man no one saw coming, until it was almost too late. Hit that like button and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. Now let me tell you what really happened. The fluorescent lights in Section 7 hummed like they were trying to remember a song they'd forgotten. Lucas Grant pushed his mop bucket past a cluster of engineers who didn't bother lowering their voices. Did you see Henderson's projections? Guy's delusional if he thinks we'll hit that timeline. Marketing's already promising delivery. We're screwed either way. They stepped around Lucas without breaking stride. He was furniture, a fixture. The guy who made sure their expensive shoes didn't track dirt into the clean rooms. Lucas didn't mind. Invisible was safe. Invisible was exactly what he needed. He guided his bucket toward the far corner where the ventilation access panels lined the wall. Third panel from the left had a loose screw, had been loose for 2 weeks now. Nobody else had noticed. But Lucas noticed everything. Old habits died hard, and some habits were branded so deep they lived in your bones whether you wanted them there or not. The panel vibrated slightly. Wrong frequency. Could mean the mounting bracket was failing, could mean there was irregular airflow from a blocked filter upstream. Either way, somebody should look at it before it became a problem. Not his job anymore. He squeezed the mop head and kept moving. "Daddy!" Lucas turned at the sound, his whole body shifting from that careful blankness he wore like a uniform into something softer. Emma stood in the doorway of the break room where he'd left her with her coloring books 20 minutes ago. 7 years old with paint stains on her fingers and his eyes looking back at him. "Hey, Bug, you okay?" "I finished the rocket." She held up a drawing that was mostly red crayon with some ambitious yellow flames. "But I can't get the wings right. They keep looking wrong." Lucas knelt down, setting the mop aside. Around them, the engineers kept talking, kept walking. Emma existed in their peripheral vision the same way he did, acknowledged but not seen. "Show me what you've got so far." She spread the paper on the floor. The rocket itself was fine. Pointed nose, cylindrical body, the exhaust trail bleeding off the page with the kind of wild confidence only kids had. But the stabilizer fins were uneven, canted at angles that would send the thing spinning into the ground. "See?" Emma's nose wrinkled. "They're wonky." "They're not wonky, they're just not balanced yet." Lucas pulled a pencil from his pocket. He always carried one now, ever since Emma started drawing on every surface she could reach. Rockets need stability. You want them symmetrical, same on both sides, same angle. Otherwise the thrust pushes them crooked and they can't fly straight. He sketched light guidelines, showing her where to place the fins. Emma watched with that intense focus she got when she was really learning something, not just hearing it. Like airplane wings? Sort of. Airplane wings create lift, these create drag, but the good kind. They keep everything pointed the right direction. "Did you fly rockets when you were little?" Lucas's hand paused for half a breath. "No, different kind of flying." She accepted that without pushing. Kids were good at that, knowing when a door was closed but not locked, understanding that some stories had to wait for the right time. "Okay." Emma took the pencil and started redrawing the fins with careful precision. "I'm going to make them perfect." "Don't worry about perfect, just make them work." He stood, ruffling her hair, and retrieved his mop. The bucket's wheel squeaked as he rolled it toward the main corridor. The squeak had rhythm, metal catching on metal every third rotation. Bearing was probably shot. He could fix it in about 4 minutes with the right tools, but maintenance would throw a fit if a janitor started taking apart equipment. So it squeaked. The afternoon crawled forward. Lucas moved through the building like water finding cracks, silent, steady, filling the spaces people left behind. He emptied trash bins that designers never thought about, wiped down surfaces that scientists forgot existed, kept the machine running while everyone else focused on the parts that mattered. At 3:15, he was cleaning the executive corridor when Ava Sterling stepped out of the boardroom with her phone pressed to her ear and murder in her eyes. "I don't care what Jerry thinks the timeline should be. I care what the contract says we promised." Her heels clicked against the polished floor. We guaranteed functional integration by Q3. That's 8 weeks. Tell him to find a way or find a new job. She ended the call without saying goodbye and nearly walked straight into Lucas's bucket. Sorry. He moved it aside. Ava glanced at him the way you'd glance at a potted plant someone left in the hallway. Vague annoyance that it was there, zero interest in why. She was maybe 28, 29, expensive suit that probably cost more than Lucas made in a month. Hair pulled back tight enough to give most people a headache. She'd been with Archon Aerospace for 6 months, VP of Advanced Programs. Youngest executive in the company's history. Lucas had read her bio in the employee newsletter. MIT grad, dual degrees, 3 years at a defense contractor before Archon poached her with what the rumor mill said was an obscene salary and a corner office. Smart, driven, didn't suffer fools, didn't suffer anyone, really. Is there a reason you're blocking the hallway? Ava's tone was flat, efficient. Just finishing up. I'll be out of your way in a second. Make it faster than a second. She stepped around him and disappeared into her office. The door closed with a decisive click. Lucas finished mopping. The floor gleamed. Nobody would notice, but that was fine. He wasn't looking for applause. By 5:30, most of the building had cleared out. Lucas collected Emma from the break room and they walked to the parking lot together, her small hand tucked into his. Can we get pizza? Emma swung their joined arms. We had Pizza Tuesday. That was 3 whole days ago. Wow, ancient history. I'm basically starving. I might die. Lucas smiled despite himself. Okay, but we're splitting one, and you're eating some of those vegetables I know you hate. Carrots aren't vegetables. They're punishments that look orange. They drove to the pizza place in Lucas's old truck, a '98 Ford Ranger that rattled when it accelerated and burned oil like it was going out of style. The AC didn't work, so they rolled the windows down and Emma stuck her hand out to feel the wind push back against her palm. Inside the restaurant, they slid into a booth near the window. Emma ordered cheese pizza with barely any vegetables, please, and Lucas got them a side salad to balance out the nutritional disaster. How was your day? Lucas asked. Good. I finished my math worksheet and Mrs. Patterson said my handwriting is getting better. That's great, Bug. How was your day? Lucas considered the question. How did you explain your day when your day was designed to be forgettable? When the whole point was to be the person nobody remembered seeing? It was fine. Kept busy. Emma studied him with those 2 old eyes, the ones that had seen him come home at 3 in the morning with blood on his shirt that wasn't his. The ones that had watched him drag himself out of nightmares he couldn't explain. She was 7, but she'd learned to read silences better than most adults. You like your job? I like that it lets me be there for you. That's not the same thing. No, Lucas admitted. It's not. The pizza came. They ate. Emma told him about a fight 2 kids had over a swing at recess and how she'd solved it by suggesting they time each other and take turns. Lucas listened and asked questions and didn't think about the fact that he'd once coordinated extraction teams in 3 different time zones while running on 2 hours of sleep and a handful of caffeine pills. Different life, different person. This was better. They got home a little after 7. Their apartment was small, 1 bedroom that Emma had, and a couch in the living room that Lucas slept on. Rent was cheap because the building was old and the landlord didn't believe in things like consistent water pressure or functioning heat, but it was theirs, clean, safe. Nobody asked questions. Emma brushed her teeth while Lucas did the dishes. Then they sat on the couch and she read to him from a book about a mouse who wanted to be a knight. She stumbled over some of the bigger words and he helped her sound them out without taking over. When she got tired, she leaned against his shoulder and he finished the chapter in a quiet voice. Love you, Bug. Love you too, Daddy. He carried her to bed, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. She was asleep before he reached the door. Lucas stood in the living room and felt the weight of the silence settle over him like a familiar coat. He could turn on the TV, but he wouldn't really watch it. Could read, but his mind wouldn't hold the words. So he did what he always did, sat on the couch and let his thoughts drift through the things he was trying to forget. Helicopters in the dark, sand in his teeth, the metallic smell of blood mixing with jet fuel, radio chatter cutting through screaming. The moment he realized the mission was wrong, that they'd been sent to kill the wrong people. the choice he made after that. Lucas closed his eyes and breathed until the memories loosened their grip. It got easier with time. Not easy, just easier. Like learning to live with a broken bone that never set quite right. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Still in town? Lucas stared at it. Could be spam. Could be something else. He deleted it without responding. The next morning, Lucas was cleaning the research wing when he heard the argument. I'm telling you, the calibration is off. A young engineer named Davis stood in front of a massive diagnostic screen, gesturing at a cascade of red warning indicators. Look at the variance. We're outside acceptable parameters. It's within tolerance. Henderson, the senior engineer, didn't even look up from his tablet. Stop panicking. Those tolerances were calculated for the old sensor array. We upgraded 3 weeks ago. And the software compensates. That's what adaptive algorithms do. They adapt. Not if the baseline data is corrupted. Henderson finally looked at Davis, and the expression on his face made it clear this conversation was over. Run the diagnostics again. If it's still throwing flags tomorrow, we'll discuss it. Until then, we have actual problems to solve. Davis opened his mouth, then closed it. He stalked off, jaw tight with frustration. Lucas kept mopping. Not his business, not his place. But the screen bothered him. He'd spent enough time around complex systems to recognize when something was wrong. The variance pattern wasn't random. There was a rhythm to it, a periodicity that suggested either a hardware issue or an external interference source. Software couldn't adapt its way out of bad input. Garbage in, garbage out. He finished the floor and moved on. At lunch, Lucas took Emma to the cafeteria. Archon had decent food and they let employees' kids eat free if they were quiet and stayed out of the way. Emma was good at both. They were halfway through sandwiches when Ava Sterling walked in. She moved through the room like she owned it, which, in a sense, she kind of did. People straightened when they saw her. Conversations got quieter. She grabbed a salad from the line, scanned the room, and chose a table in the corner where she could work while she ate. Emma watched her with open curiosity. Is she mean? What makes you think she's mean? Everybody gets weird when she walks by. She's not mean, she's just focused. On what? Making sure things work right. Emma considered this. Like you? Not like me. But you make things work right too. You fixed the coffee machine last week. And that door that was sticking, and that's different. How? Lucas didn't have a good answer for that. Emma went back to her sandwich, satisfied with the mystery she'd uncovered. Ava was on her phone again, her salad barely touched. Even from across the room, Lucas could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her free hand kept clenching and unclenching. Whatever fire she was putting out, it wasn't going well. She hung up and stabbed at her salad like it had personally offended her. Daddy? Yeah, Bug? Why do grown-ups make everything so complicated? Lucas smiled. I wish I knew. That afternoon, the diagnostic screens in the research wing went from red to critical. Alarms started going off. Not the building evacuation kind, but the expensive equipment is about to fail catastrophically kind. Lucas was cleaning a conference room nearby when he heard the shouting. Shut it down. I can't. The override's not responding. Then pull the physical breaker. Which one? There are 40 breakers in that panel. Lucas set down his spray bottle and walked to the doorway. Inside the research wing, a dozen engineers crowded around the main console while warning lights painted everything in shades of red and amber. The sensor array, a $15 million piece of equipment that was supposed to be the centerpiece of Archon's new satellite imaging system, was overheating, fast. Henderson barked orders that nobody seemed able to follow. Davis stood frozen, watching the temperature readings climb into dangerous territory. Lucas's brain shifted into a mode he thought he'd left behind. Training kicked in, assess, prioritize, act. The breaker panel was on the west wall. Gray metal box, 40 switches, none of them labeled in a way that would help someone who didn't know the system. But Lucas had spent 6 weeks cleaning this wing. He'd noticed which breakers threw heat signatures, which ones hummed at higher frequencies, which sections of the building went dark during the monthly safety tests. He walked to the panel. Hey! Henderson spun around. You can't be in here right now! Lucas ignored him. opened the panel, and flipped 3 breakers in quick succession. The alarms cut off. The screens went dark. The sensor array's cooling fans spun down with a mechanical sigh. Silence crashed over the room. Everyone stared at Lucas. "What the hell did you just do?" Henderson's face was red. Killed power to the array and its dedicated cooling loop. Temperature was spiking because the coolant pump was running backward, probably a phase sequence issue in the control board. Shutting down the whole system lets it cool passively while you fix the root cause. Henderson blinked. "How did you... You should check the wiring on that control board. Looks like somebody swapped 2 of the phase conductors during the last maintenance cycle." Lucas closed the breaker panel and walked back to the conference room to retrieve his cleaning supplies. Behind him, someone whispered, "Who the hell is that guy?" Good question. Ava Sterling heard about the incident from 3 different people before she bothered to track down the details herself. A janitor had shut down a critical system failure that her senior engineers couldn't handle. That should have been impossible. She pulled the security footage. There he was, the guy with the mop bucket who'd been blocking her hallway yesterday. Moved to the breaker panel with 0 hesitation, flipped exactly the right switches, explained the problem like he'd designed the system himself. Then just left. Ava rewound the footage and watched it again. His body language was all wrong for someone who was guessing. No hesitation, no checking labels, just walked up and solved it. She found him 2 hours later, mopping the executive corridor. Again. "Lucas Grant?" He looked up, recognized her. "Ms. Sterling, you know my name. It's on your door." "Fair enough. You want to explain what happened in the research wing today?" "Equipment malfunction. Your engineers handled it." "My engineers were 30 seconds from destroying $15 million in hardware. You handled it." Lucas squeezed out his mop. "I just killed the power. Anybody could have done that. Except nobody did, and you knew exactly which breakers to flip. Lucky guess." Ava stepped closer. She was good at reading people. Had to be in her position. You didn't survive corporate warfare without learning to spot lies, evasion, weakness. But Lucas Grant wasn't giving her anything. His face was calm, his posture relaxed. He met her eyes without challenge or submission. It was the most infuriating thing she'd encountered all week. "Where'd you work before here?" she asked. "Different places." "What kind of places?" "The kind that don't matter anymore." "Humor me." Lucas set the mop in the bucket. "I'm just a janitor, Ms. Sterling. I clean floors. Sometimes I notice things. That's all." "Nobody's just anything." "Maybe not, but I'm trying to be." He picked up his bucket and walked away, leaving Ava standing in the hallway with more questions than she'd started with. She pulled his employment file that evening. Sparse didn't begin to cover it. High school diploma, no college. Previous employment listed as general labor, with references that checked out but didn't actually say anything meaningful. No criminal record. No red flags. Also, no explanation for how a guy mopping floors knew complex electrical systems and engineering troubleshooting protocols. Ava made a note to keep an eye on him. Over the next 2 weeks, Lucas tried very hard to be invisible again. It didn't work. Henderson's team found the wiring fault exactly where Lucas said it would be. Fixed it, tested it, grudgingly admitted that the janitor had saved their asses. Word spread. People started noticing him, not in a good way, but in a, who is this guy, and why does he know things he shouldn't way? Lucas kept his head down, did his job, picked up Emma from school, made dinner, read bedtime stories, tried to ignore the feeling that the walls were closing in. Then the ventilation panel in Section 7 fell off the wall during a night shift. Nobody was hurt, but it could have been bad. The panel weighed 40 pounds, and it came down right where people walked during shift changes. Facilities scrambled to explain how a properly installed panel just spontaneously failed. Lucas could have told them. The loose screw he'd noticed 3 weeks ago had finally vibrated free. The mounting bracket had cracked from metal fatigue, and the whole assembly had been held up by friction and hope. But saying that would mean admitting he'd seen the problem and hadn't reported it. So he kept quiet. Until Ava showed up in Section 7 with a facilities manager and started asking questions. This should have been caught during inspections. She stared at the empty mounting holes like they'd personally betrayed her. How long was this panel compromised? The facilities manager stammered something about scheduling and resource allocation. Ava wasn't buying it. Someone had to have seen this degrading. Screws don't just back out overnight. Lucas was cleaning a workstation 15 feet away. He could feel her attention shift toward him before she even turned. Mr. Grant, you clean this section regularly? Yes, ma'am. Notice anything unusual about that panel? He could lie, should lie, but Emma's voice echoed in his head. Why do grown-ups make everything so complicated? Loose screw, third panel from the left. Been that way about 3 weeks. The facilities manager's face went pale. You saw a safety issue and didn't report it? I'm a janitor. I clean. I don't know what's normal for your equipment and what isn't. You knew enough to shut down a sensor array, Ava said quietly. Lucas met her eyes. That was different. People were about to get hurt. This was just a loose screw. A loose screw that could have killed someone. Could have, didn't. That's not the point. Then what is the point? Ava opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked uncertain. The facilities manager jumped in, trying to regain control. We'll need to do a full investigation. File a report. There are protocols. Forget the protocols. Ava cut him off. Just fix every panel in this section, today. And check the rest of the building while you're at it. Miss Sterling, the budget, I don't care about the budget. I care about this building not killing people. Make it happen. The facilities manager fled. Ava stayed. She studied Lucas for a long moment, and he could see her putting pieces together, pieces that didn't quite fit but bothered her anyway. You're not just a janitor, she said finally. I'm whatever the paycheck says I am. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. Ava's jaw tightened. She wanted to push, he could tell, wanted to crack him open and see what was inside. But something held her back, maybe professionalism, maybe something else. Stay available, she said. I might have more questions. She left. Lucas finished cleaning and went home. That night, Emma asked him about heroes. They were building a blanket fort in the living room, couch cushions propped against chairs, sheets draped overhead, flashlights creating pools of warm light in the fabric cave. Mrs. Patterson says heroes are people who do brave things, even when they're scared. Emma arranged her stuffed animals in a semicircle. Are you a hero? Lucas paused in the middle of securing a blanket corner. No, Bug, I'm not. But you do brave things. You fixed that scary machine at work. That wasn't brave. That was just knowing which switch to flip. What if you flipped the wrong switch? Then I would have looked pretty stupid. Emma giggled, but her eyes stayed serious. Were you ever a hero before? The question landed like a punch. Lucas sat down in the fort, pulling Emma into his lap. She curled against him, small and warm and trusting, and he wondered how to explain things that didn't have good explanations. I used to think I was, he said slowly. I did things that felt important, felt like they mattered. But then I realized that sometimes the people calling you a hero are wrong. Sometimes you're just following orders that shouldn't be followed. What happened? I stopped following them. Did you get in trouble? Yeah. Big trouble. The biggest. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing. Do you wish you were still doing hero stuff? Lucas kissed the top of her head. Not even a little bit. This is better. Building forts? Building forts with you. She seemed satisfied with that. They stayed in the fort for another hour, reading and talking and being still together. When Emma fell asleep, Lucas carried her to bed and then sat on the couch, staring at the ceiling. His phone buzzed. Same unknown number as before. We need to talk. Lucas deleted the message. But this time, he didn't quite believe it would be that easy. The demonstration was scheduled for a Friday. Big deal. Senators, defense contractors, Archon executives, they'd be showing off the integrated satellite imaging system, proving that all the money and time had been worth it. Ava had been preparing for weeks, every detail locked down, every contingency planned. This was her project, her reputation on the line. Succeed here and she'd cement her position. Fail and she'd be out before the weekend. Lucas watched the preparations from a distance. Extra security, caterers, A team of publicists making sure everything looked perfect for the cameras. He hoped it went well. Ava was sharp-edged and cold, but she cared about her work in a way that reminded him of the good parts of his old life, the parts where competence mattered, and people took pride in doing things right. Friday morning arrived with cloudless skies and temperatures that would have been perfect if the building's AC wasn't struggling to keep up with the extra bodies. Lucas kept Emma home from school, told her it was a special day off, let her bring her coloring books to work. She set up in the break room with juice boxes and granola bars while Lucas made sure every floor in the public-facing sections gleamed. By 10 a.m., the demonstration was underway. Lucas stayed out of sight, but he could hear the presentations echoing through the corridors. Technical specs, performance metrics, questions from senators who barely understood what they were looking at. Then, at 10:47, someone screamed. Lucas dropped his mop and ran. He found them in the main demonstration hall, a crowd of people backing away from a man on the floor. Henderson, senior engineer. Face gray, clutching his chest, gasping for air that wouldn't come. Everyone was frozen, staring, useless. Lucas shoved through the crowd and dropped to his knees beside Henderson. Cardiac arrest. Textbook presentation. His hands moved before his brain caught up, checking for pulse, tilting the head to open the airway, starting compressions. Hard and fast, just like the training that was supposed to be buried somewhere he'd never have to access again. Someone shouted about calling 911. Lucas counted compressions, felt ribs flex under his palms. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 more. Keep the blood moving, keep the brain alive. Henderson's eyes were open but not seeing anything. Lucas kept working. Somewhere in the background, Ava's voice cut through the chaos. "Clear the room! Give him space!" The crowd shuffled back. Lucas's sleeve caught on Henderson's watch, tore, kept going. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. The paramedics arrived 6 minutes later. Felt like 6 hours. They took over and Lucas stepped back, breathing hard, hands shaking with adrenaline he hadn't felt in years. Henderson had a pulse, weak, but there. They loaded him onto a stretcher and rushed him out. Lucas stood there, sweat dripping down his face, and slowly became aware of the silence around him. Everyone was staring, not at Henderson, at him, at his arm, where the torn sleeve had fallen away to reveal the tattoo on his inner forearm. Unit insignia, special operations, classified program, the kind of mark you only got after earning your way into rooms that didn't officially exist. Ava stepped forward. Her face was unreadable. "Who are you?" she asked. Lucas pulled his sleeve down, but it was too late. The damage was done. "Just a janitor," he said. Nobody believed him. Before anyone could ask more questions, every screen in the building went dark. Then the alarms started. Not fire alarms, not evacuation tones, security breach, network intrusion, system compromise. The demonstration hall erupted into controlled panic. Senators demanding answers, security personnel barking into radios, executives trying to maintain composure while their billion-dollar project imploded in real time. Ava grabbed Lucas's arm, the one with the tattoo. "What's happening? Someone's in your system. I know that. How do we stop it?" Lucas looked at the screens flashing error messages, looked at the crowd of panicking VIPs, looked at Ava, who was staring at him like he was the only stable thing in a collapsing world. He thought about staying invisible, about keeping his head down, about being just a janitor. Then he thought about Emma in the break room, coloring while the building fell apart around her. "Get everyone to the exits," he said. "This isn't random. Someone's covering their tracks." "Covering what?" The lights went out. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in red. In the crimson glow, Lucas saw Ava's expression shift from confusion to understanding to something that looked like trust. "Help us," she said. It wasn't an order, it was a request. Lucas closed his eyes, took a breath, and let go of invisible. "Get me to your main server room, now." Ava moved fast. She didn't ask questions, didn't demand explanations, just grabbed her security badge and headed for the stairs. Lucas followed, his mind already running through possibilities. Network breach during a high-profile demonstration wasn't coincidence. Someone had waited for maximum chaos, maximum witnesses. Server room sublevel 2, Ava said, taking the stairs 2 at a time in heels that should have made that impossible. Access is restricted. My badge won't get you in. It'll get me close enough. They hit the basement level, and the emergency lighting turned everything into shadows and red. Water pipes ran overhead, dripping condensation that hadn't been there this morning. The environmental controls were down too. A security guard stood outside the server room door, hand on his radio, looking confused and useless. Ms. Sterling, we're in lockdown. I can't let anyone... Open the door, Michael. Protocol also says that if our systems are compromised, I have executive authority to override. Open it. Michael hesitated, then swiped his card. The door clicked open. Inside, the server room hummed with machinery that was working overtime to process something it wasn't supposed to be processing. Rows of rack-mounted equipment blinked in patterns that Lucas recognized from another life. Data exfiltration, systematic file access, credential harvesting. Professional work. Tell me what you see, Ava said. Lucas moved to the nearest console. The login screen was locked, but the network activity monitor was still visible. Didn't need credentials to see the disaster unfolding in real time. Someone's in deep, not just surface level. They've got admin access. They're pulling everything, schematics, communications, personnel files. Can you stop it? Maybe. Depends on how they got in. Lucas scanned the equipment, looking for the entry point. Physical access was unlikely. Too many cameras, too much security, which meant it was remote, which meant there was a vulnerability somewhere in the network stack that someone had found and exploited, or someone had let them in. Who has admin credentials? Lucas asked. Me. Henderson. 3 other senior engineers, IT director, CEO. Henderson's in an ambulance. Where are the others? Ava pulled out her phone, fingers flying. Henderson's backup is Davis. He's upstairs trying to manage the demonstration fallout. Other engineers are. She scrolled through messages. Patterson's on vacation. Lynn called in sick this morning. IT director is... She stopped. What? He's not answering. Lucas felt something cold settle in his gut. When did he call in? This morning. 7 a.m. Said it was food poisoning. Right before the demonstration. Their eyes met. Son of a bitch, Ava whispered. Lucas turned back to the console. If the IT director had gone rogue, he'd have planted back doors, created secondary access points, maybe even compromised the physical security. Taking down the intrusion from inside the network would be like trying to stop a flood by mopping, pointless when the dam was already broken. I need to physically disconnect the external network feeds, Lucas said. Cut them off at the source before they finish the data pull. Where? Telecom closet. Should be on this level, northwest corner. How do you know that? I've cleaned this building for 8 months. I know where everything is. They ran. The corridor stretched ahead of them, emergency lights casting everything in horror movie red. Somewhere above, people were evacuating. Lucas could hear the muted thunder of footsteps, the distant wail of approaching sirens. The telecom closet was locked. Heavy door, card reader, probably reinforced frame. Ava swiped her badge. Nothing. Damn it. This must be on a different security tier. Lucas looked at the door, then at the card reader, then at the ceiling tiles above them. Standard drop ceiling, 2x4 panels. He'd replaced 3 of them in this corridor last month after a water leak. Give me a boost, he said. What? Trust me. Ava stared at him for half a second, then laced her fingers together. Lucas stepped into her hands and she lifted, stronger than she looked. He pushed up a ceiling tile and pulled himself into the cramped space above. Insulation, ductwork, electrical conduits, and there, the wall separating the corridor from the telecom closet didn't extend all the way to the structural ceiling, just ran to the drop ceiling and stopped. Security through obscurity, which wasn't really security at all. Lucas crawled over the wall, found a support beam that would hold his weight, and dropped down inside the closet. Racks of networking equipment lined the walls, fiber optic cables, Ethernet runs, a massive patch panel that looked like it belonged in a museum. And in the corner, the main trunk line, thick bundle of cables running up through the ceiling toward the building's external connection point. Lucas found the master disconnect. Big red switch that probably had 50 warning labels telling people not to touch it unless they wanted to kill the entire building's internet. He pulled it. The networking equipment went dark. The background hum of data traffic disappeared. Outside, Ava was pounding on the door. "Lucas, are you okay?" He unlocked it from the inside. "We're offline, completely. Whatever they were pulling, they're not pulling it anymore." "They already got something." "Yeah, but not everything." Ava ran a hand through her hair, destroying whatever professional styling she'd started the day with. "This is going to be a nightmare. We just went dark during a demonstration in front of 3 senators and a dozen defense contractors. Better than letting someone steal your entire research database. That's not going to make the headlines any less terrible." Lucas stepped out of the closet. "You can rebuild from terrible. You can't rebuild from compromised. If they'd gotten everything, your competitors would have your designs before you finished cleaning up the press coverage." Ava looked at him. Really looked. The way she hadn't since they'd started running. "You're not a janitor." "I mop floors. That makes me a janitor." "Don't do that. Don't hide behind technicalities. I saw that tattoo. I know what it means." "You know what it used to mean. Special operations doesn't just let people walk away." Lucas met her eyes. "They don't. Not usually." "What happened?" The question hung between them. Lucas could feel the weight of it, the decision point. He'd kept his past buried for 8 months, kept Emma safe by being nobody, by blending into the background. But the background was burning now, and hiding wasn't going to keep anyone safe anymore. "Not here," he said. "We need to get back upstairs, make sure Emma's okay. Then we need to figure out who just tried to gut your company and why they picked today to do it." Ava nodded. "Okay." "But Lucas, this conversation isn't over." "I know." They headed back to the stairs. The building's emergency power was holding, but the silence felt wrong. No hum of HVAC. No background noise of computers processing. Just the sound of their footsteps echoing off concrete. On the ground floor, they found organized chaos. Security was herding people toward the exits. The senators and their staffers were already gone, probably in armored cars heading back to D.C. Executives clustered in tight groups, talking in hushed voices that suggested lawyers were about to get very rich. Lucas spotted Emma through the break room window. She was still at the table with her coloring books, headphones on, completely oblivious to the disaster unfolding around her. A security guard stood nearby, looking uncertain about whether he was supposed to evacuate a 7-year-old without parental supervision. Lucas pushed through the door. "Hey, Bug?" Emma looked up, pulled off her headphones. "Hi, the lights went red. Is that normal?" "Not exactly. We need to go home early today." "Okay." She started gathering her crayons with the methodical precision of a kid who'd learned that you don't leave your stuff behind because there might not be money to replace it. "Are you in trouble?" "No, just a problem at work." "Did you fix it?" "Sort of." Emma studied his face, then nodded. She trusted him to tell her the truth when it mattered. "Can we get ice cream?" "Sure, Bug, we can get ice cream." Ava appeared in the doorway. She'd found a moment to straighten her hair, wipe the smudge of dirt from her cheek, trying to reassemble the executive armor. But her eyes were different now, less certain, more alert. "This is Emma," Lucas said. "Emma, this is Ms. Sterling. She's my boss." Emma waved. "Hi." "Hello." Ava's voice softened in a way Lucas hadn't heard before. "You're very calm for someone whose dad's workplace just went into emergency lockdown. Daddy fixes things when they break. That's what he does." Ava's gaze shifted to Lucas. "Yes, I'm starting to see that." A man in a suit approached, corporate security, senior level based on the way he carried himself. "Ms. Sterling, we need you upstairs. CEO wants a full briefing." "Give me 5 minutes." "Ma'am, the senators are already gone. 5 minutes won't change anything except my blood pressure." "Give me 5." The security man left. Ava turned back to Lucas and Emma. "Thank you, V," she said. "For Henderson, for the servers, for not running when things went sideways." Lucas picked up Emma's backpack. "It's what anyone would have done." "No, it's not, and you know it." Ava pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back, handed it to Lucas. "That's my personal cell. I'm going to be stuck here for hours doing damage control, but tomorrow we're going to talk, really talk. about who you are and why someone with your skill set is mopping my floors. Maybe I just like mopping. And maybe I just like quarterly reports. We both know that's not the whole story. Emma tugged on Lucas's hand. Can we go now? I want strawberry. Yeah, Bug. Let's go. They left through the side exit, avoiding the cluster of news vans setting up in the front parking lot. Lucas's truck sat in the far corner where he always parked it, out of the way, easy to leave quickly if needed. He buckled Emma into her booster seat and she immediately started talking about what flavor ice cream she wanted and whether they could get sprinkles and maybe also a cookie because today felt like a cookie kind of day. Lucas drove and let her talk and tried not to think about the tattoo that was no longer hidden, the past that was no longer buried, the questions that were about to start coming from directions he couldn't control. They got ice cream at the place near their apartment. Emma got strawberry with rainbow sprinkles, and Lucas got coffee because he needed the caffeine more than the sugar. They sat at an outside table and watched cars go by while Emma narrated an elaborate story about her stuffed rabbit's adventures. Lucas's phone buzzed. Text from the unknown number. Saw the news. Guess you're not invisible anymore. We should talk before this gets worse. He stared at the message. The sender knew where he was, knew what had happened, which meant they'd been watching for a while. Lucas deleted the text and turned off his phone. Emma was watching him. You okay, Daddy? Yeah, just tired. From fixing things? Something like that. They finished their ice cream and went home. Lucas made dinner while Emma did homework at the kitchen table, math problems that she narrated out loud, treating numbers like characters in a story. After dinner, they played a card game Emma had invented where the rules changed every round and the only objective was to make each other laugh. At 8:30, Emma brushed her teeth and climbed into bed with her rabbit. Will you read the night story? She asked. Lucas found the book, settled into the chair beside her bed, and read about the mouse who wanted to fight dragons. Emma's eyes got heavy halfway through chapter 3. By the end of the chapter, she was asleep, breathing slow and steady, one hand curled around her rabbit's ear. Lucas sat there for a while watching her. 7 years old and she'd already seen too much, learned too young that the world wasn't safe, and people left and sometimes the person you loved most came home with shadows in his eyes and blood on his clothes. But she was okay. More than okay. She was smart and funny and kind, and she loved strawberry ice cream and made-up card games and stories about mice who didn't know they were too small to be heroes. Lucas kissed her forehead and left the door cracked open so the hallway light would keep the darkness from being complete. In the living room, he turned his phone back on. 6 missed calls, 4 from numbers he didn't recognize, 2 from Ava Sterling, and 1 text from the unknown number. Tomorrow, diner on 5th and Morrison, noon. Come alone or don't come at all. But this conversation is happening whether you want it to or not. Lucas read it twice, then put the phone down. He could ignore it. Could pack up Emma and disappear tonight, be in another state by morning. They'd done it before. New city, new names, new start. He was good at disappearing, but running meant giving up the life they'd built here. The apartment that Emma had decorated with crayon drawings. The school where she had friends. The job that let him be present, be there when she woke up and when she fell asleep. Running meant admitting that the past could still control the present. Lucas looked around the small apartment. Furniture that didn't match, walls that needed paint, carpet worn thin from years of other people's footsteps. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. He texted back, "Noon. I'll be there." The response came immediately. Smart. Bring the truth. You're going to need it. Lucas set the phone down and sat in the darkness, listening to Emma's quiet breathing from the next room, and wondered if there was any version of truth that didn't end in losing everything. The next morning started wrong. Lucas woke up at 5 a.m. from a nightmare he couldn't quite remember, just the taste of copper and the sound of rotors and someone screaming his name. He made coffee and sat on the couch until the sky turned gray. Emma found him there at 6:30, dragging her rabbit and looking confused. "You're up early." "I couldn't sleep." "Me neither. My brain keeps thinking about things." "What kind of things?" Emma climbed onto the couch beside him. "The lady from yesterday, Ms. Sterling. She looked at you different." "Different how?" "Like she was trying to figure out a puzzle." "Are you a puzzle, Daddy?" Lucas pulled her close. Everybody's a puzzle, Bug. Some are just harder than others. Am I a hard puzzle? You're the easiest puzzle I ever solved. Know why? Why? Because you're exactly who you are. No hiding, no pretending. Emma considered this. You hide sometimes. The observation landed harder than it should have. Yeah, sometimes I do. Why? Because I'm trying to keep you safe. From what? Things that don't matter anymore. Emma leaned her head against his shoulder. I think they matter. Otherwise, you wouldn't hide. 7 years old, and she could see through him like glass. They made breakfast together, scrambled eggs that were a little too dry and toast that was a little too dark. Emma complained cheerfully about both and ate everything anyway. Then they got dressed, and Lucas walked her to school, holding her hand at crosswalks and listening to her explain the intricacies of second-grade social politics. At the school gate, Emma hugged him extra tight. You're coming back, right? She asked. Always, Bug. Always. Promise? Promise. She ran off to join her friends, and Lucas watched until she disappeared into the building. Then he walked back to the apartment, changed into clean clothes, and tried to figure out how to explain 8 years of classified operations to a person who thought janitor was the complicated part of his resume. At 11:30, he drove to the diner on 5th and Morrison. Old place probably hadn't changed its menu since the 80s. Chrome and red vinyl, and a waitress who looked like she'd been pouring coffee since before Lucas was born. He took a booth in the back where he could see the door. At noon exactly, a woman walked in. Mid-40s, gray suit, hair pulled back in a way that suggested she didn't have time for styling. She scanned the room, spotted Lucas, and headed straight for his booth. She sat down without asking permission. Captain Grant, been a while. Lucas studied her. The face was familiar, but the context was wrong. It took him a second to place her. Analyst, CIA, worked liaison with his unit on 3 different operations. Smart, careful, didn't trust anyone, which in their world was the only way to stay alive. Major Reeves, Lucas said, thought you retired. Thought you were dead. Guess we're both full of surprises. The waitress appeared. They both ordered coffee, and she left. You're not here for a reunion, Lucas said. No, I'm here because yesterday someone tried to steal classified aerospace technology from a private contractor, and you happened to be in the building. Coincidence doesn't exist in our world, Captain. You know that. I'm not a captain anymore. Technically, you're a fugitive, but I'm willing to overlook that if you tell me what the hell you're doing working as a janitor in a facility with active defense contracts. Lucas leaned back. I'm working as a janitor because I have a daughter to take care of, and janitor jobs don't ask a lot of questions. Emma, 7 years old, 2nd grade, likes drawing and strawberry ice cream. The casual recitation of his daughter's details hit like a physical blow. Lucas kept his expression flat, but his hands clenched under the table. If you're trying to threaten me, I'm not threatening you. I'm demonstrating that I've done my homework. Emma's a good kid, bright, happy. Deserves a father who's not looking over his shoulder waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then leave us alone. I can't do that, because yesterday's attack wasn't random, and it wasn't about corporate espionage. The intrusion was sophisticated, military grade, the kind of operation that requires resources and access and knowledge that doesn't exist in the civilian sector. Plenty of ex-military contractors out there. True, but here's the interesting part. The intrusion signature matches patterns from operations your old unit ran. Specifically, patterns from operations you designed. Lucas went very still. Reeves pulled out a tablet, swiped through screens, turned it to face him. Data logs, network analysis. Intrusion vectors laid out in diagrams that Lucas recognized because he'd written the playbook they were following. Someone's using your work, Reeves said, which means someone from your old life knows you're here, and they're sending a message. What message? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Maybe they want you back. Maybe they want you dead. Maybe they just want to remind you that you don't get to walk away clean. She closed the tablet. But either way, you're in play again, and that means Emma's vulnerable. Lucas felt something cold and sharp twist in his chest. I left because I wouldn't be part of illegal operations. I testified. Gave them everything. They promised immunity, witness protection, a clean break. They lied. Or maybe they meant it and the situation changed. Politics have a way of making inconvenient witnesses expendable. Then what do you want from me? Help me find out who's behind this. The attack on Archon was a probe, testing defenses, seeing how you'd react. They'll come again. And next time it might not be just data they're after. I'm not going back to that world. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to help me protect the one you're in now. Reeves leaned forward. Look, Grant, I know what you gave up. I know why you disappeared. But these people aren't going to stop because you're mopping floors and reading bedtime stories. They're going to keep pushing until they get what they want or eliminate the obstacle. What do they want? That's the question. Maybe they want the operation details you never testified about. Maybe they want revenge for the ones you exposed. Or maybe... She paused. Maybe they want you to do what you do best one more time. Lucas shook his head. I'm done with that. You weren't done yesterday when you saved Henderson's life, or when you shut down that network intrusion. You still have the instincts, the training. You can pretend to be nobody all you want, but when things go wrong, you default to who you really are. Who I really was. There's no past tense in our business. You know that. The waitress brought their coffee. They sat in silence until she left. Lucas wrapped his hands around the cup, feeling the heat seep into his palms. Even if I wanted to help, which I don't. What makes you think I have anything useful? I've been out for 3 years. Whatever I knew is outdated. You know the people, the patterns, how they think. Reeves pulled out a photo, slid it across the table. Recognize him? Lucas looked at the image. Man in his 30s, military bearing even in civilian clothes. Face that triggered recognition, but not quite placement. Name's Carson, Sergeant First Class when you knew him. He washed out of the program 6 months after you left, failed psych eval, disappeared into the contractor circuit. Memory clicked into place. Carson. Good soldier, terrible judgment. The kind of guy who followed orders without asking if they made sense. He was reliable, Lucas said carefully. Not smart, but reliable. He's dead, killed 2 weeks ago in what the police called a random mugging. Except the mugging happened in a secure parking garage, and the mugger somehow knew exactly when Carson would be there and alone. You think it's connected? I think 4 people from your old unit have died in the last 6 months under circumstances that look accidental but aren't, and I think whoever's cleaning house is working their way up the chain. Lucas set down his coffee. Who else? Reeves pulled out more photos. Names and faces that Lucas remembered from operations he'd tried to forget. Good people mixed with bad ones, all bound together by missions that had made sense at the time and looked like war crimes in hindsight. Patterson, car accident. Brakes failed on a highway. Mitchell, fell off a building during routine maintenance work. Zhao, overdose that nobody who knew her believed for a second. And you think I'm next? I think you're either next or you're the one they're saving for last. Either way, sitting in your apartment waiting isn't going to keep Emma safe. Lucas looked at the photos spread across the table. Ghosts staring back at him. People he'd worked with, trusted, sometimes saved. People who'd made the same choices he had, or different ones, or no choices at all because the system didn't offer options, just orders. What do you want me to do? He asked. Come work for me. Officially. Contractor status. You help me figure out who's behind this, we make it stop. In exchange, I guarantee protection for Emma. Real protection, not promises. I don't trust promises anymore. Then trust results. I keep my people alive, Grant. It's what I'm good at. Lucas thought about Emma at school, drawing pictures and learning to read. Emma at home, building blanket forts and asking questions he couldn't answer. Emma growing up with a father who was always looking over his shoulder, always waiting for the past to catch up. I need guarantees, he said. In writing, Emma's safety is non-negotiable. Done, I'll have papers drawn up by Monday. And I don't do wet work, no eliminations, no black ops, no moral gray zones. I'm done with that. Your analysis and strategy, nothing kinetic unless it's defensive. Lucas finished his coffee. It had gone cold. When do we start? You already did. Yesterday when you stopped that intrusion. Now we figure out who launched it and why. Reeves stood gathering the photos. She pulled out a phone, new, still in plastic, and set it on the table. Encrypted. My number's programmed in. Check it every 2 hours. If I need you to move fast, I'll send a code phrase. Emma's rabbit is purple. You get that message, you grab your daughter, and go to the address I'm about to give you. Don't stop, don't pack, just go. That's the panic code. That's the everything went to hell code. Let's hope you never see it. She walked out, leaving Lucas alone with a cold coffee cup and a phone that felt like a weight in his pocket. He sat there for another 10 minutes, staring at nothing, trying to figure out how his life had gone from invisible to exposed in less than 24 hours. His personal phone buzzed. Text from Ava. Need to see you. My office, 2 p.m. Don't make me hunt you down. Lucas paid for the coffee and drove back to Archon. The parking lot was half empty, people still spooked from yesterday, working from home where network breaches didn't chase them. He found Ava's office on the 3rd floor, door open, her pacing behind her desk like a caged animal. Close the door, she said. He did. Sit. He sat. Ava stopped pacing and faced him. The IT director, the one who called in sick yesterday? He's in the wind. Apartment cleaned out, bank accounts emptied, electronic trail ending at the Canadian border 2 days ago. He ran. He ran with about $50 million worth of research data and a list of every classified contract we've worked on in the past 5 years. The FBI is involved. So is DOD, and they want to talk to you. About what? About how a janitor managed to stop a sophisticated network intrusion that our entire security team couldn't touch. About why you have a special operations tattoo and a skill set that doesn't match your employment history. About who the hell you really are, Lucas. She sat down across from him, and for the first time since he'd met her, Ava looked uncertain. I vouched for you, she said quietly. Told them you were just in the right place at the right time, that you had some technical background I wasn't aware of, that you acted heroically and probably saved the company from a complete disaster. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. They're going to dig. And when they dig, they're going to find things. And when they find things, my reputation is going to be on the line for defending someone I apparently don't know at all. Lucas met her eyes. What do you want me to tell you? The truth, all of it. Not the sanitized version, not the story you tell Emma, the real story. So he told her. Not everything. Some things were still classified, still dangerous. But enough. The unit he'd been part of. The missions that started making less sense. The operation that crossed too many lines. The decision to report it. The testimony. The threats. The deal that fell apart. The years of running. Ava listened without interrupting. When he finished, she sat back and stared at the ceiling. You were a ghost, she said finally. An actual government ghost. And now you clean my floors. It's honest work. It's insane work for someone with your background. You could be doing anything. Teaching, consulting, private security. Instead, you're mopping up coffee spills and hiding from your past. I'm not hiding anymore. Yesterday made that impossible. No. Ava leaned forward. Yesterday made you useful, and that's a very different thing. The word hung in the air between them. Useful. Lucas had spent 3 years making himself the opposite. Forgettable, replaceable, someone who could disappear without leaving a gap. And now here was Ava Sterling, sharp-eyed and calculating, looking at him like he was a tool she'd just discovered in her drawer. I'm not interested in being useful, Lucas said. Too late. You already are. Ava pulled out a folder, flipped it open. The FBI wants a full debrief. DOD wants to know if there's a national security angle. And I want to know if my company is caught in the middle of something that's going to blow up in my face. Your company's fine. This isn't about Archon. Then what's it about? Lucas thought about Reeves and the photos spread across the diner table. Dead soldiers. A trail of bodies that looked accidental but wasn't. Someone cleaning house or sending a message or both. Old business, he said. People I used to work with. Someone's tying up loose ends and they used your security demonstration as cover to test how I'd respond. That's insane. That's tradecraft. You create chaos in one place to mask what you're really doing somewhere else. Yesterday's intrusion wasn't about stealing your data. It was about forcing me to act, to show my hand. Ava closed the folder. And you did. You showed everyone exactly who you are. Yeah. So what happens now? Now I figure out who's behind it before they escalate, before Emma becomes a target instead of just leverage. The mention of his daughter shifted something in Ava's expression. The executive mask cracked slightly, revealing something that looked almost human underneath. How old is she? Ava asked. 7. She seems smart, well-adjusted. She is. I want to keep it that way. Then let me help. Lucas stared at her. Why would you do that? Because yesterday you saved Henderson's life and stopped my company from being gutted. Because I'm realizing that having someone with your skill set in my building might not be a coincidence. Maybe it's an asset. She paused. And because I don't like people who threaten kids, even indirectly. It was the last part that surprised him. Ava Sterling, ice-cold executive who measured everything in quarterly returns and efficiency metrics, showing something that looked like actual anger on behalf of a 7-year-old she'd met for 30 seconds. What kind of help? Lucas asked. Resources, access, cover if you need it. Archon has contracts with half the defense industry. If someone's using military-grade intrusion techniques, there's a paper trail somewhere. Money changing hands, equipment being moved, personnel with the right clearances. I can find it. This isn't corporate espionage. These people don't leave paper trails. Everyone leaves trails. You just have to know where to look. Ava leaned back in her chair. I'm good at looking. It's what they pay me for. Lucas considered it. Reeves wanted him working officially, pulling him back into a world he'd fought to leave. But Ava was offering something different. Resources without the strings, help without the obligation to become who he used to be. I need to think about it, he said. Don't think too long. The FBI interview is Monday morning. If you walk in there with nothing, they're going to assume you're either complicit or compromised. Neither of those options ends well for you or Emma. She was right. Lucas stood. I'll let you know. Lucas? Ava's voice stopped him at the door. Whatever happened in your past, whatever you're running from, it's not going to stop chasing you just because you ignore it. Sometimes the only way out is through. He left without answering because there wasn't a good answer to give. The weekend crawled by. Lucas kept Emma close, took her to the park on Saturday, and the library on Sunday. Normal activities in a world that felt increasingly less normal. He checked the encrypted phone to every 2 hours like Reeves had instructed. No messages, no panic codes. Just silence that felt more ominous than reassuring. On Sunday night, after Emma was asleep, Lucas sat at the kitchen table and spread out everything he knew. 4 dead soldiers from his old unit. A sophisticated network intrusion designed to expose him. An IT director who'd sold out and disappeared. And somewhere in all of it, a pattern he couldn't quite see. He pulled out a notebook, paper and pen, nothing digital that could be traced, and started writing names. Not just the dead ones, but everyone from the unit who'd been part of the operation that went wrong. 15 people total. 4 dead. 11 unaccounted for. Lucas was number 12. Someone was working through the list. The question was why? The operation had been a targeted strike. Eliminate a high-value target in a foreign country. Make it look like factional violence. Clean, surgical, deniable. Except the intelligence had been wrong. The target wasn't a terrorist cell leader. He was a journalist investigating weapon sales to terrorist groups. Weapon sales that traced back to U.S. contractors and the officials who approved them. Lucas and 3 others had recognized the mistake mid-mission. They'd aborted, pulled back, reported the discrepancy. And that's when everything went sideways. The operation got reassigned to another unit who didn't ask questions. The journalist died, and the 4 soldiers who'd objected suddenly became liabilities. Lucas had made a choice then. Go public or disappear. He'd tried going public first, testified to an inspector general, handed over evidence, trusted the system to work. For 3 months, it looked like justice might actually happen. Then the investigation got buried, the inspector general got reassigned to a desk job in Alaska, and Lucas got a visit from 2 men who explained very politely that accidents happen to people who didn't know when to shut up. So he'd taken Emma and run. Now someone was killing the people who'd been there, either to silence them permanently or to send a message to anyone else who might be thinking about talking. Lucas's phone buzzed. Not the encrypted one. his personal phone. Text from Ava. Can't sleep. Keep thinking about what you said. Want to compare notes? It was 11 p.m. Reasonable people were asleep, but Lucas wasn't sleeping, and apparently neither was Ava. He texted back. Where? My place. I'll send the address. 20 minutes later, Lucas was standing outside a high-rise apartment building in the nice part of town where rent cost more per month than he made in 3. Ava buzzed him up to the 15th floor. Her apartment was exactly what he expected. Clean lines, expensive furniture, everything in shades of gray and white. It looked like a showroom, not a home. No photos, no personal touches, nothing that suggested an actual human lived here. Ava answered the door in jeans and a sweater, her hair down for the first time since Lucas had met her. She looked younger this way, less armor, more person. Come in. Coffee? Sure. She disappeared into the kitchen while Lucas stayed in the living room, looking at the massive window that offered a view of the city lights spread out below like a circuit board. Ava returned with 2 mugs. I went through the company's security logs, cross-referenced access attempts against personnel movements, found something weird. She pulled out her laptop, opened a spreadsheet that made Lucas's eyes hurt. The IT director, his name was Marcus Webb, by the way, he started acting strange about 6 weeks ago. Small things, coming in early, staying late, accessing systems he didn't normally touch. But here's the interesting part. She tapped a column of data. Every time he accessed sensitive files, there was a corresponding login from an external IP address within 10 minutes. Someone was watching over his shoulder remotely. He had a handler. That's what I'm thinking, and whoever it was, they were careful. Used a VPN that bounced through 6 different countries. But they made one mistake. She pulled up another screen. On March 8th, the VPN dropped for about 90 seconds. The real IP came through. Lucas looked at the address. It didn't mean anything to him. Where's that? Northern Virginia, specifically about 2 miles from a private contractor that does consulting work for the intelligence community. Could be coincidence. Could be. Except that same contractor was recently awarded a classified contract to develop network intrusion tools for offensive cyber operations, the kind of tools that were used in yesterday's attack. Lucas set down his coffee. How did you get access to classified contract information? I didn't. I got access to unclassified contract summaries that are public record if you know where to look. Then I filled in the blanks with educated guesses based on the contractor's hiring patterns and facility upgrades. She smiled slightly. Like I said, I'm good at looking. This is more than just looking. You're building an intelligence profile. I'm building a case. There's a difference. Not to the people who classify this stuff, there isn't. Ava closed the laptop. Then maybe they should do a better job of keeping their activities secret. I'm just connecting dots that are already visible. Lucas stood, walked to the window. Below, the city hummed with life, cars moving, lights burning, people existing in their separate bubbles of reality. Somewhere down there, Emma was asleep in their small apartment, safe for the moment, but increasingly vulnerable the longer this dragged on. The contractor, he said. What's their name? Zenith Strategic Solutions. Ever heard of them? Lucas had. They'd been barely operational when he was still active, a small outfit that did backroom work for agencies that needed plausible deniability. The kind of company that existed in the gap between legal and illegal, operating in shadows deep enough that oversight couldn't reach. Yeah, he said. I know them, or knew them. They've apparently grown since I left. They've grown a lot. Revenues up 300% in the past 2 years. Major contracts with DoD, CIA, NSA. They're positioned to become one of the biggest players in the private intelligence sector. Someone's feeding them work. Someone with a lot of pull. The kind of pull that can bury investigations and make witnesses disappear. Lucas turned from the window. You need to step back from this, Ava. You're digging into things that can get you killed. So are you. I don't have a choice. This is my past coming back. But you can walk away. Should walk away. Ava stood, crossed to where he was standing. I could, but I'm not going to. You know why? Why? Because I spent my whole life playing it safe, following the rules, checking the boxes, building a career that looks impressive on paper but doesn't actually mean anything. She gestured at the apartment around them. This place? It's a mausoleum. I work 80 hours a week and come home to silence. I've optimized my life for efficiency and forgotten to actually live it. That's not a reason to get involved in something this dangerous. No. But maybe it's a reason to start making different choices, to do something that actually matters, instead of just accumulating quarterly performance reviews. Lucas studied her face. There was something different there now. Not the cold calculation he'd seen before, but something raw, determination mixed with something that looked like desperation. This isn't a career pivot, he said quietly. This is people dying, real violence, real consequences. I know. I'm not naive, Lucas. I know exactly what I'm getting into. She met his eyes. The question is whether you trust me enough to let me help. That was the question, wasn't it? Trust. Lucas had spent 3 years not trusting anyone beyond Emma. It had kept them safe. It had also kept them isolated, always one step from running, never building anything that couldn't be abandoned. I need to make a call, he said. He pulled out the encrypted phone, dialed Reeves. She answered on the second ring. It's late, Grant. This better be important. Zenith Strategic Solutions. What do you know about them? Silence on the other end. Then, where did you hear that name? Does it matter? Yeah, it does. Zenith's connected to some very powerful people who don't like being looked at too closely. Is it connected to what's happening? The deaths? The intrusion? More silence. Lucas could hear Reeves thinking, weighing how much to say. Zenith's been on our radar for about 8 months, she said finally. They're growing too fast. Winning contracts they shouldn't be winning. We think they've got someone inside the procurement process greasing wheels. But every time we get close to proving it, evidence disappears or witnesses develop amnesia. Or witnesses die in accidents. That too. You think Zenith's behind the hit list? I think they're connected. The intrusion signature, the contractor ties, the timing. It all points back to them. Okay, I'll dig deeper, but Grant, be careful. These people have resources and reach. They're not going to hesitate if they think you're a threat. I'm already a threat. That's why they're testing me. Then maybe it's time to stop reacting and start pushing back. She hung up. Lucas turned to find Ava watching him. What did she say? Ava asked. That we're right, and that it's more dangerous than we thought. So what do we do? We need proof. Hard evidence that connects Zenith to the intrusion and to the deaths. Something that can't be buried or explained away. Ava thought for a moment. Marcus Webb, the IT director. He didn't just disappear, he ran with data. Lots of it. What if he kept copies? He'd be stupid to keep copies of something that incriminating. He'd be stupid to run with stolen data without insurance. If Zenith hired him to infiltrate Archon, he'd know they might decide to tie up loose ends. Smart move would be to keep evidence hidden somewhere as leverage. But Lucas saw where she was going. A dead man's switch. He gets killed, the evidence goes public. Exactly. Which means he's still alive and the evidence still exists. Finding him isn't going to be easy. No, but I have an idea. Ava opened her laptop again, pulled up a different set of files. Webb was methodical, obsessive even. He documented everything. Before he disappeared, he was accessing archived security footage from 2 years ago. Specific dates, specific cameras. He was looking for something. What dates? Ava showed him. Lucas recognized them immediately. They corresponded to the initial setup of Archon's current security system. The installation that would have required background checks, access protocols, system architecture documentation. He was looking at who had access during the installation phase, Lucas said. Right. Which means he either suspected someone planted a backdoor during setup, or he was looking for proof that someone else had already identified the vulnerability he was exploiting. Can you pull that footage? Already did. Ava opened a video file. Grainy security camera footage showed technicians installing equipment, running cables, configuring systems. Standard installation work, nothing obviously suspicious. Lucas watched it play. What am I looking for? Watch the guy in the back, third from the left. Lucas focused on the technician Ava indicated. Young, maybe mid-20s, working efficiently but not drawing attention. He moved through the installation like someone who'd done it 100 times. Except, he's photographing the setup, Lucas said, with his phone. Quick shots when no one's looking. He documented the entire network architecture. That's your back door. He built it in from day one. And Webb figured it out. That's why he was looking at this footage. He was building his insurance file. Lucas rewound the video, froze it on the technician's face. Young, unremarkable, the kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after seeing it. Can you ID him? Already did. His name was listed on the installation crew manifest. Eric Chen, 26 years old at the time. Background check came back clean, no red flags. Was? He quit 3 weeks after the installation was complete. Told his employer he was taking a job overseas. No forwarding address, no references needed, just walked away. And let me guess, the employer was a subcontractor hired through Zenith. Ava nodded. You're catching on. Lucas stood. We need to find Webb. He's the only one who can connect all these pieces. Chen planted the back door, Zenith ran the operation, but Webb has the documentation that proves it. The FBI's already looking for him. We're not going to find him if they can't. The FBI's looking for a fugitive. We're looking for a man who's terrified for his life and sitting on evidence he knows could get him killed. Different psychology, different approach. What approach? Lucas thought about it. Webb was smart, technical, methodical. He'd have planned his disappearance carefully, but he'd also be paranoid, checking for pursuit, looking over his shoulder. And paranoid people made mistakes. He took money, Lucas said. Lots of it. But he can't spend it without leaving traces. He'll need to convert it, move it, hide it. That takes infrastructure, and infrastructure means points of contact. Digital currency? Probably, but even cryptocurrency has to be exchanged somewhere, and exchanges have verification requirements, security protocols, ways to track unusual activity. Ava was already typing. I know someone who works in financial forensics. Owes me a favor from a previous project. If Webb's moving money, we can find the pattern. She made a call. It was almost midnight, but apparently favors didn't care about time zones. The conversation was brief, technical, full of acronyms Lucas didn't recognize. When she hung up, Ava looked satisfied. He'll have something for us by morning. Webb made transfers to 3 different cryptocurrency wallets in the past 2 weeks. My guy can trace where those wallets intersect with legitimate exchanges. That's a lot of trust to put in a favor. He's reliable and discreet. Helped me uncover some financial irregularities in a competitor's SEC filings last year. Knows how to keep his mouth shut. Lucas checked the time. After midnight. He should go home, get a few hours of sleep before Emma woke up. But something felt wrong about leaving, about walking away from the momentum they'd built. I need to be here when your guy calls back, he said. You can stay. I've got a guest room. I should get back to Emma. It's midnight, Lucas. She's asleep. And you live 20 minutes away. By the time you get home, it'll be almost 1. You'd get maybe 4 hours of sleep before you have to be up again. She was right. Lucas called his neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, who sometimes watched Emma when emergencies came up. Explained that he'd be home early morning, asked if she could check in. Mrs. Chen agreed, like she always did, asking no questions because she'd learned that Lucas's emergencies were real even if he couldn't explain them. The guest room was as impersonal as the rest of the apartment. White walls, minimalist furniture, a bed that looked like it had never been slept in. Lucas lay down fully clothed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the city hum 15 floors below. Sleep didn't come. His mind kept churning through possibilities, threats, contingencies. Emma at school, vulnerable. Webb hiding somewhere with evidence. Zenith operating in shadows, cleaning up loose ends. Reeves pulling him back into a world where people died for asking the wrong questions. Around 2 a.m., Ava knocked softly on the door. Can't sleep either? She asked. No. Want coffee? Yeah. They sat in her kitchen, all stainless steel and granite designed for someone who never actually cooked. Ava made coffee in a machine that probably cost more than Lucas's truck. "Tell me about Emma," she said. The request surprised him. "What do you want to know?" "Everything, nothing. What she's like when she's not being 7 years old in a crisis." Lucas smiled despite himself. "She's stubborn, smart in ways that scare me sometimes. She notices everything, remembers everything, asks questions I don't know how to answer." "Like what?" "Like why I chose to mop floors when I could do other things. Like whether I'm happy, like if the life we have is the life I wanted." "What do you tell her?" "The truth, that I chose this life because it lets me be her dad. That happiness is complicated, that sometimes the life you get is better than the one you planned because it's real." Ava was quiet for a moment. "Do you believe that?" "Most days." "And the other days?" "The other days I wonder if I'm being selfish, keeping her in a life where we're always ready to run, where she can't get too attached because we might have to leave, where her dad has nightmares he won't explain and scars he can't talk about. She seems happy. She's 7. 7-year-olds are good at being happy. It's the default setting. But eventually she'll be 8, then 12, then 16, and eventually she'll start asking questions that need real answers." "What will you tell her then?" "I don't know. That I made choices, some good and some terrible. That I tried to do the right thing and it blew up in my face. That I love her more than anything, and that's the only part I don't regret." Ava stared into her coffee. "My father was career military, 3 deployments. He came back different each time, more distant, more closed off. By the time I was Emma's age, he was basically a stranger who happened to live in our house." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm telling you this because I recognize what you're doing. The compartmentalization, the walls. You think you're protecting her by keeping her separate from your past. But kids aren't stupid. They know when there's a locked door. And eventually they start wondering what's behind it. So what should I do? Tell a 7-year-old about black ops and dead soldiers and the fact that her dad is a liability to people with the power to make us both disappear? No. But maybe you can stop pretending you're just a janitor. Stop acting like the person you were doesn't matter. Because Emma already sees through it. She just doesn't know what she's seeing yet." Lucas set down his coffee. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? You think you're the only one who's hiding. I've spent my entire adult life building a reputation as someone who's efficient, competent, cold. I optimized myself for corporate success and forgot to be a person. And now I'm 30 years old sitting in an apartment that looks like a hotel room, drinking coffee at 2 a.m. with a man I barely know because it's the most real conversation I've had in months." The admission hung between them. Ava looked almost shocked that she'd said it out loud. "We're a mess," Lucas said finally. "Yeah, we really are." They sat in silence, drinking coffee that had gone lukewarm, 2 people who'd built their lives around not needing anyone and were just now realizing how lonely that strategy had been. At 4 a.m., Ava's phone rang. She answered, listened, made notes. When she hung up, she looked grimmer than before. Webb made 3 transfers, 2 to cryptocurrency exchanges in Eastern Europe, 1 to a traditional bank in the Cayman Islands. The bank transfer was 48 hours ago. My guy traced the account. It was opened 3 months ago under a shell corporation. And guess who filed the incorporation papers? Zenith. Close. A law firm that exclusively represents Zenith. Webb didn't run with their money. He ran with his payment. They set up his escape route, gave him the infrastructure to disappear, which means they know exactly where he is. Ava nodded. And if we can figure that out, so can anyone else who wants him dead. Lucas stood. We need to find him first, before Zenith decides he's more of a liability than an asset. How? We don't have the resources to track someone internationally. No, but we have something better. We have the knowledge that Zenith thinks they're safe. They're not scrambling, not covering tracks. They're operating like they've won, which means they're getting sloppy. What do you need? Access to your building's security system. The full archive, not just what Webb was looking at, and I need it without anyone knowing we're looking. Ava checked her watch. Security office is unmanned from 4 to 6 a.m., shift change. We'd have maybe 90 minutes before someone notices. That's enough. They drove to Archon in Ava's car, a sleek sedan that handled like it cost 6 figures. The building was dark except for emergency lighting and a single security guard at the front desk who waved at Ava without question. She had access everywhere, challenged by no one. The security office was exactly what Lucas expected. Monitors, recording equipment, servers humming in climate-controlled racks. Ava logged in with credentials that gave her administrator access. "What are we looking for?" she asked. Chen, the technician who installed the back door. Webb was reviewing footage of the installation, but he was focused on the technical details. "I want to see what Chen did when he wasn't working. Break times, before and after shifts. People reveal themselves in the margins." Ava pulled up the footage, set it to run at high speed. They watched days of installation work compressed into minutes. Chen worked, took breaks, ate lunch. Nothing unusual, just a technician doing a job. Then, on the third day, something changed. Chen stepped outside during a break, stood in the parking lot, and looked directly at a specific camera. Held the pose for exactly 3 seconds, then walked away. "Replay that," Lucas said. Ava ran it back. Chen's gaze fixed on the camera, deliberate and knowing. He wasn't just looking, he was marking a position. "He's identifying surveillance coverage," Lucas said, "mapping the blind spots." Why? Because he needed to know where he could move without being seen. Watch the next day. They did. Chen arrived early before the rest of the crew. Moved through the building with purpose, staying in the gaps between camera coverage. He was invisible for almost 20 minutes. Where did he go? Ava pulled up the floor plans, traced his possible routes. "There's nothing in that section except..." She stopped. "Except what?" "Except the physical security for our prototype storage, the room where we keep developmental projects before they're ready for testing." Lucas felt something click into place. He wasn't just installing backdoors into your network. He was casing your physical security, mapping how to get into secure areas. But he never came back. He left 3 weeks after installation. He didn't need to come back. He gave Zenith everything they needed to access your facility remotely. Network access through the back door, physical access through the security gaps he identified. Webb just executed the digital side. But there's more planned, something bigger. Ava's face went pale. The demonstration wasn't the attack, it was the test. And we just showed them their plan works. The realization hit Lucas like cold water. They'd been so focused on stopping the intrusion that they'd missed the obvious. Nobody went to that much trouble just to test defenses. You tested defenses when you were planning to breach them for real. "What's in the prototype storage?" Lucas asked. Ava was already pulling up inventory records. Her fingers moved fast across the keyboard, but Lucas could see the slight tremor in her hands. She was scared. "Good. Fear kept you sharp. 3 active projects. 2 are commercial aviation systems. Nothing classified, just competitive advantage stuff. But the third..." She stopped scrolling. "Project Sentinel. Next generation satellite targeting system. Military contract, prototype phase." "What does it do?" "Theoretically, it's supposed to improve precision targeting for drone strikes by integrating real-time satellite imagery with AI-assisted threat assessment. Reduces collateral damage, increases accuracy. And practically..." Ava met his eyes. "Practically, whoever controls the system controls the targeting data. They could redirect strikes, falsify threat assessments, turn our own weapons against targets they choose instead of the ones we authorize." Lucas felt his stomach drop. "That's not a prototype. That's a weapon. It's supposed to be a tool, but yeah, in the wrong hands. When's it scheduled to go operational? Initial deployment is in 6 weeks. Field testing starts in 3. But the prototype is complete and functional. It's just sitting in storage waiting for final approval signatures. Which means it's vulnerable right now. Before it gets moved to a secure military facility, before it has the full protection protocols. We have protection, armed security, biometric access, encrypted storage protocols. That Chen already mapped. Ava, everything you think is keeping that system safe, Zenith knows about. They've had 2 years to plan this. They're not going to try to hack their way in. They're going to walk in." Ava closed the laptop. "We need to call the FBI. DOD. Someone." "And tell them what?" That we think a private contractor might be planning to steal a prototype based on security footage and financial forensics we obtained through questionable means? They'll take a report and launch an investigation that'll take weeks. We don't have weeks. Then what do we do? Lucas thought fast. The sun would be up soon. Emma would wake up, expect him to be there with breakfast and terrible jokes. He couldn't fight shadows while trying to be a normal dad. But he also couldn't let a weapons system fall into the hands of people who killed soldiers to cover their tracks. We need to get ahead of them, he said. Force them to move before they're ready. Make them sloppy. How? Webb. If we find him first, we expose Zenith's entire operation. They can't steal the prototype if they're busy dealing with federal investigators crawling through their financials. We've been over this. We don't know where Webb is. No, but we know where his money is, and money needs to move. Lucas pulled out the encrypted phone. I'm calling Reeves. She's got resources we don't. If anyone can track Webb's movements, it's her. The call connected. Reeves sounded wide awake despite the early hour. Grant, you're up early. I need help, fast. What kind of help? Lucas laid it out. Chen's reconnaissance, the prototype vulnerability, Webb's escape route funded by Zenith. When he finished, there was silence on the other end. You've been busy, Reeves said finally. And stupid. You know Zenith has lawyers who'll bury you if they catch wind you're investigating them. They're planning to steal a military weapons system. Allegedly planning. You've got circumstantial evidence and pattern analysis. That's not proof. Then help me get proof. I can't authorize an operation based on speculation. I'm not asking you to authorize anything. I'm asking you to use your contacts to track a financial trail. Webb moved money through a Cayman account. Follow it. See where it goes. If I'm wrong, you wasted a few phone calls. If I'm right, you stopped a major security breach before it happened. Reeves was quiet for a moment. This is personal for you. Yeah, it is. Because of the hit list, or because you want to prove you're not just a janitor anymore? The question cut deeper than Lucas wanted to admit. Does it matter? It might. Personal motivations make people reckless, and reckless gets people killed. I'm not being reckless. I'm being thorough. Thorough would be stepping back and letting professionals handle this. Professionals haven't stopped 4 soldiers from dying. Professionals buried the investigation into my unit's operations. Professionals made a deal with me and then pretended it never happened when it became politically inconvenient. Lucas took a breath. I'm done trusting professionals. Another pause, then Reeves sighed. I'll make some calls, but Grant, if this blows up, I never talk to you. Clear? Clear. She hung up. Ava was watching him. What now? Now we wait. And while we wait, we make sure that prototype doesn't go anywhere. It's in a secure facility. It's not going anywhere. It's in a facility that Zenith has mapped and studied for 2 years. Secure is relative. They left the security office as the shift change happened. New guard coming on, old guard leaving, neither one noticing that 2 people had spent the last 90 minutes digging through footage that might as well have been classified. Outside, the sky was starting to lighten. Dawn came early this time of year, painting everything in shades of gray and pink. Lucas's truck sat alone in the parking lot, looking even more decrepit next to Ava's sedan. You should go home, Ava said. Check on Emma. Get some actual sleep. What about you? I'm going back to my apartment to shower and change. Then I'm coming back here to have a very uncomfortable conversation with my head of security about why our supposedly impenetrable storage facility might not be as secure as we think. Be careful what you tell him. If Zenith has people inside Archon, I know. Trust no one. Verify everything. I've seen the movies. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I'm learning. Lucas drove home through streets that were just starting to wake up. Delivery trucks, early commuters, people starting their days with no idea that somewhere in the background people were planning violence. He envied them that ignorance. Mrs. Chen was waiting in his apartment, reading a book in his kitchen. She looked up when he came in. Long night? She asked in accented English. Yeah, sorry about the short notice. Emma's still sleeping. She woke up once, asked for you. I told her you'd be back soon. Mrs. Chen stood, gathering her book and sweater. She's a good girl. Worried about you, though. I know. Whatever trouble you're in, be careful. She needs her father. Lucas walked her to the door, thanked her, promised to pay her later today. When she left, he stood in the quiet apartment and felt the weight of everything pressing down on him. Emma's door was still cracked open. He looked in, saw her curled up with her rabbit, breathing steady. Safe for now. But for how long? Lucas didn't sleep. Instead, he sat at the kitchen table and started making plans. If Zenith was going to move on the prototype, they'd need to do it soon, before increased security made it impossible, before Webb's disappearance drew too much attention, which meant Lucas needed to be ready for multiple scenarios. Theft attempt, sabotage, false flag operation that made Archon look incompetent and opened the door for Zenith to swoop in with a replacement contract. The encrypted phone buzzed at 7 a.m. Text from Reeves. Webb's account showed activity this morning. Wire transfer to a property management company in Costa Rica. I've got an address. Sending now. A second message followed with coordinates and a street name in a coastal town Lucas had never heard of. Don't do anything stupid. I've got people en route, but it'll take 12 hours to mobilize. You go down there alone, you're on your own. Lucas stared at the address. 12 hours was too long. If Webb was moving money this morning, he was either running again or settling in. Either way, he needed to be found before Zenith realized their insurance policy was about to expire. Emma wandered out of her room, rubbing her eyes. You're home. Yeah, Bug. I'm home. You look tired. Couldn't sleep. She climbed into his lap, still warm from her bed. Bad dreams? Something like that. Want to talk about it? Lucas kissed the top of her head. Not yet, but maybe soon. Okay? Emma was quiet for a moment. Can we have pancakes? Sure, chocolate chips. Obviously. They made pancakes together. Emma stood on a chair and helped mix the batter while Lucas tried to focus on being present, being dad, not thinking about Costa Rica or stolen prototypes or the fact that he was about to make a decision that could change everything. After breakfast, Lucas called Mrs. Chen again, asked if Emma could stay with her for a couple of days. An emergency had come up at work, he'd explain later. He was sorry for the inconvenience. Mrs. Chen agreed without asking questions. She was good like that. You going somewhere, Daddy? Emma asked while she packed a small bag with clothes and her rabbit. Yeah, just for a day or two. Is it dangerous? Lucas knelt down to her eye level. I'm going to be careful, and I'm going to come back. I promise. You promised last time, too. She was talking about 3 years ago, when he'd left her with a friend for what was supposed to be a few hours, and ended up being 3 days because the testimony he'd given had triggered a response team that tried to make sure he never testified again. Emma had been 4 then, barely old enough to understand why Daddy had bruises and why they had to leave their apartment in the middle of the night. This is different, Lucas said. I'm not running this time. I'm finishing something I should have finished a long time ago. Okay. Emma hugged him tight. But you have to come back. I'm not good at being alone. You're staying with Mrs. Chen. You won't be alone. You know what I mean. Yeah, he did. Lucas dropped Emma at Mrs. Chen's apartment, then drove to the airport. He didn't have luggage, didn't have a plan beyond getting to Costa Rica and finding Webb before anyone else did. He bought a ticket with cash, using an old ID that probably wouldn't hold up to serious scrutiny, but worked fine for commercial flights. The plane left at noon. 5 hours to San Jose, then another 2 hours by car to the coastal town where Webb was supposedly hiding. Lucas sat in a middle seat between a businessman who smelled like cologne and a college student who spent the entire flight watching videos without headphones. He used the time to think through scenarios. Webb was smart enough to run, which meant he was smart enough to be paranoid. Approaching him directly would trigger every alarm. But Webb was also isolated, cut off from his support network, sitting on evidence that was his only protection. That made him vulnerable in different ways. Lucas needed to offer something Webb wanted more than safety. Information, maybe. Or revenge. The plane landed in San Jose just after 5 p.m. local time. Lucas rented a car with the same questionable ID and drove northwest toward the coast. The roads got worse the farther he went, paved highways giving way to dirt tracks. tourist infrastructure fading into rural poverty. The address Reeves had sent led to a small compound outside a fishing village. Concrete walls topped with broken glass, a metal gate that looked like it hadn't been painted in a decade. Security cameras that were probably the most expensive thing about the place. Lucas parked a quarter-mile away and walked the rest. The sun was setting, painting the ocean in shades of orange and red. He could hear waves crashing, smell salt and fish, and diesel fuel from the boats in the harbor. The compound's gate was locked, but not insurmountable. Lucas found a section of wall where the broken glass had fallen away, pulled himself up, dropped down on the other side. A dog started barking immediately. Big dog, from the sound of it. Lucas froze, waiting to see if the barking brought humans. It did. A man stepped out of the main house, silhouetted against the interior lights. He was holding something. Might have been a gun, might have been a phone. Hard to tell in the twilight. "You've got about 10 seconds to explain why you're in my yard before I shoot you," the man said in English. American accent, Midwest origins. "Marcus Webb?" Lucas kept his hands visible. "I'm here to talk." "Nobody's here to talk. People are here to kill me or arrest me or both. Which are you?" "Neither. I'm the guy who stopped your network intrusion 3 days ago. The janitor." Webb lowered whatever he was holding. "Lucas Grant. Special operations dishonorably discharged, currently hiding in plain sight with a daughter named Emma. Yeah, I know who you are. Question is, how did you find me?" "Your money left tracks." "Impossible. I routed everything through account Zenith set up for you. Which means they know where those tracks lead just like I do. You think you're hidden, but you're sitting in a cage they built. And eventually they're going to decide it's easier to eliminate you than keep paying for your silence." Webb stood very still. The dog, a German Shepherd mix from what Lucas could see now, had stopped barking and was sitting at Webb's feet, watching Lucas with the kind of focus that suggested one wrong move would end badly. "Why would you warn me?" Webb asked. "Because I need what you're protecting, the evidence you collected on Zenith, the proof that they hired you to infiltrate Archon. That evidence is the only reason I'm alive. It's also the only reason you're a target. Give it to me and I'll make sure it goes somewhere they can't bury it. You get to disappear for real this time." "And I'm supposed to trust you because we both got screwed by the same people. You testified against Zenith's operations and they made you disappear. I testified against illegal military operations and they tried to kill me. We're both loose ends they're trying to tie up. The difference is I'm still fighting and you're hiding." Webb laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You call that fighting? You're mopping floors and playing house with your kid. That's not fighting, that's surrendering. I kept my daughter safe. That's winning by any metric that matters. And now, you leave her to fly down here and confront me? Doesn't sound very safe." Lucas took a step forward. The dog growled. "Zenith's planning something bigger. They're going after a military prototype at Archon. When they do, people are going to die. Maybe a lot of people. I can stop it, but only if I have proof of what they've already done." Webb was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Come inside. But if you're lying, if this is a setup, I've got 3 different plans to make sure you don't leave here alive. Understand?" "Understood." The house was exactly what Lucas expected. Temporary, functional, decorated with the kind of furniture that came with the rental. Webb had been here maybe a week, long enough to establish a routine, but not long enough to get comfortable. They sat at a kitchen table that wobbled. The dog lay down between them, watching Lucas like he was evaluating whether to bite or wait. "Show me what you got," Webb said. Lucas pulled out his phone, showed Webb the security footage of Chen mapping camera blind spots, showed him the financial forensics linking Zenith to the shell corporation that funded Webb's escape, laid out everything they'd found in the past 48 hours. When he finished, Webb was staring at the table. "They played me," Webb said quietly. "From the beginning. I thought I was being smart, building an insurance file, documenting everything so they couldn't just dispose of me. But they knew I was doing it. They wanted me to do it, so they'd know exactly what evidence existed and where it was stored." "Where is it?" "Encrypted servers, 3 different locations. I'm the only one with the access codes." "Not anymore, you're not. Zenith's good at breaking encryption. If they know where the servers are, they don't. I use dead drops. Physical locations with offline storage. No digital trail to follow. Then they'll follow you. Webb, they know where you are. If I found you, they found you. It's just a question of when they decide to move. As if summoned by the words, the dog's ears went up. It turned toward the front of the house, hackles rising. Webb's face went pale. How many people did you tell you were coming here? One. She's 12 hours behind me. Then we got company. The lights went out, not just in the house, the whole compound, the street beyond, everything. Coordinated power cut. Lucas's training kicked in. He dropped low, moved toward the wall where shadows would hide him. Webb was already moving too, muscle memory from whatever life he'd led before this. Back door? Lucas whispered. Alarmed. We go through it, they'll know exactly where we are. Then we go up. Roof access? Yeah. Attic crawl space. It's not much, but the front door exploded inward. Not kicked, blown. Shape charge, professional work. Two figures moved through the smoke, weapons up, infrared sights sweeping the room. Lucas grabbed Webb and pulled him toward the stairs. The dog snarled and launched itself at the intruders. Lucas heard gunfire, heard the dog yelp, hated himself for not being able to help it. They hit the stairs running. Behind them, footsteps. Professional, coordinated, not rushing, not panicking, people who did this for a living. The attic was cramped and hot. Webb pulled himself up through the access panel, Lucas right behind him. They could hear the assault team below, clearing rooms with mechanical efficiency. Where's the roof access? Lucas asked. Webb pointed to a vent panel. Maintenance hatch, leads to the roof, but it's a 15-foot drop to the ground on the other side. 15 feet beats getting shot. They crawled across the attic space. Below, Lucas could hear the assault team coordinating. Professional terminology, hand signals probably. These weren't contractors. These were active operators. Webb reached the hatch, pushed it open. Night air rushed in, cooler than the attic. He pulled himself through, Lucas following. On the roof, they could see the compound clearly. Two vehicles parked outside the gate, SUVs with blackout windows. At least 4 operators inside the house, probably 2 more providing overwatch. We're not getting out through the gate, Webb said. No, but we're not going through the gate. Lucas looked at the neighboring property. Another compound, separated by a 10-foot gap and a lot of empty air. Doable, if you were desperate enough. You can't be serious, Webb said. You got a better idea? Yeah, surrender and hope they just want to talk. They blew your door off and shot your dog. They're not here to talk. Below, someone shouted. They'd found the attic access. Lucas took 3 steps back, then ran. The edge of the roof came up fast and he pushed off, arms windmilling, gravity pulling him down. For a second he was in the air, nothing beneath him but empty space and bad decisions. Then his hands caught the edge of the neighboring roof. His shoulders screamed from the impact, but he held on, pulled himself up, rolled onto the flat surface. Webb stood on the other roof, staring at the gap. I can't make that, he said. You have to. I'm 43 years old and I spend my days behind a computer. I can't. Gunfire cut him off. Rounds punched through the roof near his feet. The operators had reached the attic. Webb ran. His form was terrible, his approach all wrong, but fear was a hell of a motivator. He hit the edge and jumped. He didn't make it. His hands caught the lip of the roof, but his grip was already failing. Lucas lunged forward, grabbed Webb's wrist just as his fingers slipped. For a second, all of Webb's weight hung from Lucas's grip. Lucas's shoulder joint felt like it was tearing, but he held on, pulled, dragged Webb up and over the edge. They collapsed on the roof, breathing hard. We need to move, Lucas said. They'll be over here in 30 seconds. They found a fire escape on the far side of the building, half rusted but functional. Hit the ground running and didn't stop until they reached Lucas's rental car a quarter-mile away. Lucas drove. Webb sat in the passenger seat, shaking from adrenaline. They killed my dog, Webb said. Yeah. He was a good dog. Didn't deserve that. No. They drove in silence for a while. Lucas kept checking the mirrors, watching for pursuit. The road behind them stayed dark. The evidence, Lucas said. Where is it? Webb pulled out a phone, different from the one he'd been using, probably a backup. He typed something, then showed Lucas a map with 3 markers. Dead drops. One in Singapore, one in Berlin, one in Mexico City. Physical drives with encrypted data. You'd need all 3 to piece together the full picture. How do I access them? You don't. I do. The locations are coded. The encryption is biometric. Only I can retrieve them. Lucas gripped the steering wheel. Then you're coming back with me. Back to the States? They'll arrest me the second I land. Maybe. Or maybe we hand over the evidence first and you become a witness instead of a fugitive. And you trust that the system will protect me this time, after it failed both of us before? Lucas didn't have a good answer for that. The system had failed. Multiple times, in multiple ways. Trusting it again felt like betting on a losing hand. But what other option was there? His phone buzzed. Text from Ava. Security flagged unusual activity at the prototype storage facility. Someone tried to access it remotely 2 hours ago. Failed authentication, but they got close. Too close. I think they're moving up their timeline. Lucas showed the message to Webb. They're running out of time, Webb said, which means they're going to get desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. Or they kill everyone who might expose them and disappear. That too. Lucas turned the car toward the airport. We're going back, tonight. You're going to help me stop whatever Zenith's planning, and then we're both going to burn down everything they built. Webb stared out the window at the dark countryside rolling past. You know they'll kill us both if we fail. Yeah. And probably kill us even if we succeed. Probably. So why are we doing this? Lucas thought about Emma, safe in Mrs. Chen's apartment, trusting him to come back. He thought about Henderson lying on the floor, dying until Lucas's training kicked in. He thought about the people from his old unit who were dead because someone wanted secrets buried. Because someone has to, he said, and it might as well be us. They landed back in the States 18 hours later, running on airport coffee and the kind of exhaustion that made your bones feel hollow. Lucas had spent the flight mapping out scenarios while Webb dozed fitfully in the seat beside him, jumping awake every time someone walked past. The plan was simple in the way that terrible plans always are. Get to Archon before Zenith made their move, secure the prototype, and hope that Reeves came through with enough backup to make the arrest stick. Simple. Suicidal, maybe. But simple. Lucas called Ava from the airport. She picked up on the first ring. Where are you? Just landed. Webb's with me. The FBI's been here twice looking for him. And for you. I've been stalling, but I'm running out of credible excuses. Stall for another 6 hours. That's all I need. Lucas, they're talking about charging me with obstruction if I don't cooperate. My career is on the line here. Your career won't matter if Zenith gets that prototype. Neither will mine. Neither will anything except the fact that we let it happen when we could have stopped it. Ava was quiet for a moment. What do you need from me? Access to the storage facility, the real access, not the logged kind. And I need you to trigger a false alarm in another part of the building. Pull security away from the prototype. You want me to help you break into my own company's secure facility. I want you to help me protect it. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, this feels a lot like I'm choosing between following the law and trusting a janitor I barely know. Lucas heard the fear in her voice, the uncertainty. She'd spent her whole life building a reputation as someone who followed rules, made smart decisions, played the game correctly, and now he was asking her to throw all of that away on faith. I know what I'm asking, Lucas said, and I know it's not fair. But Ava, those rules you're trying to follow, they were written by people who don't care if you win or lose. They care about covering their asses and maintaining plausible deniability. You play by their rules, you're just another piece they'll sacrifice when it's convenient. And if I play by yours, then maybe we both get to look at ourselves in the mirror tomorrow and not hate what we see. He could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Okay, she said finally. But Lucas, if this goes wrong, I'm blaming you entirely. Fair enough. They hung up. Webb was watching him. She's going to help? Yeah. And you trust her? Lucas thought about Ava in her sterile apartment, admitting she'd optimized her life into emptiness. Thought about her sitting in her kitchen at 2 a.m., drinking bad coffee and confessing that she'd forgotten how to be human. I trust that she's tired of being who she's supposed to be, Lucas said. Sometimes that's enough. They took a cab to Archon. The building looked normal from the outside, just another corporate facility where people showed up, did their jobs, went home. No hint of the violence simmering underneath. Ava met them in the parking garage, away from cameras. She looked like she hadn't slept, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, suit jacket wrinkled. The executive armor was cracking. "This is insane," she said by way of greeting. "Probably," Lucas agreed. "Webb, this is Ava Sterling. Ava, Marcus Webb." Webb nodded. "Sorry about the whole corporate espionage thing. We'll discuss that later, assuming there is a later." Ava pulled out a tablet. "I've mapped the security rotations. Guard changes happen every 4 hours. We've got a 30-minute window starting at 8 p.m. when the zones overlap, and there's a gap in coverage near the storage facility." "What about cameras?" "I can loop the feeds, but only for 10 minutes. After that, someone in the monitoring station will notice the timestamp discrepancy. 10 minutes to get in, secure the prototype, and get out. That's tight. It gets tighter. The biometric scanner requires retinal and fingerprint authentication. I can get you past the retinal scan using my access, but the fingerprint reader cross-references with personnel files. If it detects someone who's not authorized, it locks down and triggers an alert," Webb finished. "Standard security protocol. I helped design it. Can you bypass it?" Lucas asked. "Maybe, if I had the right equipment and about 6 hours." "We don't have 6 hours. Zenith's going to move soon. Maybe tonight." Ava looked between them. "So what do we do?" Lucas thought about it. Standard approach wasn't going to work. They'd never get past the security protocols in time. But security systems were designed to keep people out. They weren't designed for people who were already inside. "We don't break in," Lucas said. "We let them break in and we're waiting when they arrive." Webb stared at him. "You want to use the prototype as bait? I want to catch them in the act. Zenith's good at covering their tracks, good at making things disappear. But if we catch them actually stealing a military weapons system, there's no covering that up, no making it go away. And if they kill us before we can expose them, then we make sure someone else knows what happened, insurance policy, just like you had with your evidence files." Ava pulled up building schematics on her tablet. "The storage facility has one entrance and no windows. Anyone going in or out has to use the main door. If we position ourselves inside before they arrive, we'll be trapped," Webb said. "No exit strategy. If they bring enough people, we're done. So we make sure they don't bring enough people. Make them think it's an easy grab. In and out, minimal exposure." Lucas looked at Ava. "Can you make it look like security's been reduced? Shift schedules, guard rotations, make it obvious there's a vulnerability?" "I can alter the duty roster. Make it look like we're understaffed tonight due to budget cuts. But that'll also make it suspicious. Like someone's deliberately creating an opening. That's the point. We want them to think they've got inside help. That Webb left them a present before he disappeared." Webb shook his head. "They'll smell the trap." "Maybe. Or maybe they're desperate enough that they'll take the risk. You said it yourself. They're running out of time. The prototype moves to a military facility next week. This is their last window." The debate went in circles for another 20 minutes before they ran out of time to argue. 8 p.m. was coming whether they were ready or not. Ava made the duty roster changes. Webb worked on a bypass for the biometric scanner that would let them in, but leave the system armed for anyone following behind them. Lucas called Reeves one more time. "I need you to have people ready," he said. "Tonight. Archon Aerospace prototype storage facility. Zenith's going to try to steal military hardware. If we're right, you'll catch them red-handed. And if you're wrong, then you can arrest me for breaking and entering. Either way, you'll have something to show for the trip." Reeves sighed. "I've got a team 2 hours out. Can you hold position until then?" "We'll try." "Grant, don't be a hero. Heroes get killed and filed under acceptable losses." "I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm just trying to keep my daughter safe." "Then stay alive. She needs her father more than she needs his revenge." Lucas hung up. At 7:30, they entered the building through a service entrance. Ava's credentials got them past the initial checkpoints without questions. The halls were empty. Most staff had gone home, leaving just skeleton security and a few engineers working late. The storage facility was in the basement, down 2 levels and through a corridor that felt more like a bunker than an office building. Reinforced walls, filtered air, the kind of construction that suggested someone had thought hard about what they were protecting. Ava's retinal scan got them through the first door. Webb's jury-rigged bypass handled the fingerprint reader, though he sweated through the entire process. The door opened with a hydraulic hiss. Inside, the storage facility looked like a high-tech warehouse. Rows of climate-controlled lockers, each one containing components or prototypes in various stages of development. And in the center, in a clear case that probably cost more than Lucas's truck, sat Project Sentinel. It didn't look like much, just a compact processing unit about the size of a car battery, wrapped in cables and diagnostic equipment. But Lucas knew what it represented: the ability to redirect military strikes, falsify targeting data, turn precision weapons into instruments of chaos. In the wrong hands, it was a nightmare. Now what? Webb asked. Now we wait. Lucas found a position behind a storage rack where he had a clear line of sight to the entrance, and hoped they take the bait. Ava checked her watch. Security rotation changes in 20 minutes. After that, we're in the gap. Us. They settled in. The minutes crawled by. Lucas's legs started to cramp from holding position, but he didn't move. Webb fidgeted, couldn't help himself. Ava stood perfectly still, a statue carved from corporate ambition and newfound doubt. At 8:15, the lights went out, not gradually, all at once, like someone had thrown a master switch. Emergency lighting kicked in after a few seconds, bathing everything in dim red. They cut the power, Ava whispered. Just like Costa Rica, Webb said. Same playbook. Lucas's hand went to the gun he'd borrowed from Reeves's contact, a Glock 19 that felt familiar despite 3 years of not touching a weapon. Old habits, old instincts. They came back faster than he wanted them to. The sound of the door opening was almost inaudible. Professional entry, controlled and quiet. Lucas counted shadows moving through the red light. 4 people. Maybe 5. All armed, all moving with the coordination that came from training and experience. They made straight for the prototype. No hesitation, no searching. They knew exactly where it was. The team leader was a woman, mid-30s, moving with the kind of confidence that suggested she'd done this before. She approached the case while 2 others set up a portable workstation, bypassing the security protocols, probably. The other 2 provided security, weapons up, scanning for threats. Lucas waited. Let them commit. Let them think they were safe. The woman opened the case, reached for the prototype. Lucas stepped out of cover, gun raised. That's far enough. The team spun, weapons tracking toward his voice. Professional reflexes, zero hesitation. Gun on the floor, the team leader said. Her voice was calm, almost bored. You're outnumbered and outgunned. This doesn't have to get messy. Funny. I was about to say the same thing. Ava stepped out from another angle, holding her phone up. Smile for the camera. You're live streaming to a secure server. Everything you've done in the past 5 minutes is documented and backed up in 3 different locations. It was a bluff. Ava didn't have that capability set up, but the team didn't know that. The leader's expression shifted. Not panic, but calculation, weighing options, evaluating threats. You're making a mistake, she said. This isn't what you think it is. Really? Because it looks like corporate theft of military hardware. Pretty straightforward from where I'm standing. This is a sanctioned recovery operation. We're retrieving stolen property on behalf of its rightful owners. Interesting story. Who's the rightful owner? That's classified. Lucas smiled. Classified is code for, I'm making this up as I go. Webb, you recognize anyone here? Webb stepped into view, studied the faces. Her, team leader. She ran security for Zenith's operations division, recruited personally by their CEO. The woman's jaw tightened. You're a dead man, Webb. You know that, right? The second you testified, you signed your death warrant. Maybe, but I'm still breathing, which is more than I can say for the 4 people you killed trying to clean up your mess. Collateral damage. They knew the risks. They were soldiers, Lucas said. They followed orders. That's not the same as knowing they'd be murdered for doing the right thing. The team leader shifted her weight slightly. A tell. She was preparing to move. Lucas saw it coming half a second before it happened. She lunged for the prototype while her team opened fire. Lucas dropped, rolled, came up shooting. His first round caught one of the security team in the shoulder, spinning him around. The second missed. The third hit the portable workstation, sending sparks flying. Ava was down, pressed against a storage locker, hands over her head. Webb had disappeared behind equipment racks. Smart. The team leader grabbed the prototype and ran for the door. Two of her people provided covering fire, while the third tried to flank Lucas's position. Lucas tracked the flanker, fired twice. Both rounds missed, but forced the man back into cover. He was out of practice, reflexes slower than they used to be. 3 years of pushing mops had taken a toll. The door burst open. More people coming in, but these weren't Zenith operatives. Federal agents, body armor, weapons drawn. Reeves's team had arrived early. The room erupted into chaos. Agents shouting commands, Zenith team trying to shoot their way out. Lucas caught in the middle, trying not to get killed by either side. The team leader made it to the door with the prototype. Agents moved to intercept. She grabbed one of them, used him as a shield, back toward the exit. Lucas had a shot. Clean line, center mass. The muscle memory was there, the training screaming at him to take it. But taking it meant becoming who he used to be. Meant accepting that violence was the answer, that killing solved problems, that the only way to stop bad people was to put them down permanently. He hesitated. The team leader saw it, smiled, threw the agent aside and disappeared through the door. Lucas lowered his gun. Webb crawled out from behind the equipment racks, hands up. Don't shoot. I'm with them. Sort of. The federal agents secured the room. Zip-tied the 3 remaining Zenith operatives. Called for backup, medical, someone to process the scene. Reeves appeared in the doorway, taking in the carnage with the expression of someone who'd seen it all before and was tired of the mess. Grant, you look like hell. Feel worse. The team leader got away with the prototype. Yeah, sorry. Don't apologize. We got 3 live prisoners and enough evidence of corporate espionage to bury Zenith in federal charges. That's a win. Doesn't feel like one. Reeves studied him. You had a shot at her. Why didn't you take it? Lucas looked at the gun in his hand. He'd cleaned it, loaded it, carried it. But when the moment came, he couldn't pull the trigger. Not anymore. Because I'm not that person anymore, he said. And I don't want to be. Even if it means the bad guys sometimes get away? Even then. Reeves nodded slowly. Okay, get out of here. Take your people and go. I'll handle the cleanup. What about Webb? He's got a lot to answer for. But he also just handed us the biggest corporate espionage case in a decade. That buys him some consideration. I'll make sure he gets a fair deal. Webb looked relieved. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You're still going to jail, just maybe not for as long. Ava emerged from behind the storage locker, shaky but unhurt. What about me? You? Reeves smiled slightly. You're a concerned executive who noticed suspicious activity and alerted the authorities. Far as I'm concerned, you're a hero. I helped break into my own building. You helped prevent the theft of military hardware. Details matter, Ms. Sterling. Outside, dawn was breaking. Lucas stood in the parking lot and watched the sky turn from black to gray to pale blue. Behind him, agents processed the scene. Ahead of him, the day was starting, normal people heading to normal jobs, living normal lives. He pulled out his phone, called Mrs. Chen. Is Emma awake? Just finishing breakfast. Want to talk to her? Yeah. A moment later, Emma's voice came through. Daddy, are you coming home? Yeah, Bug, I'm coming home. Did you finish the thing? Mostly. Still some cleanup to do, but the hard part's over. Good. Mrs. Chen makes weird eggs. I miss your eggs. Lucas laughed despite himself. I'll make you eggs tomorrow. Extra cheese, the way you like them. Promise? Promise. He hung up and found Ava standing beside him. She looked exhausted, but somehow lighter, like she'd put down a weight she'd been carrying too long. What now? She asked. Now I go home. Make breakfast for my daughter. Try to figure out how to explain why I was gone without lying about where I was. And then? And then I probably need to find a new job. Something tells me Archon won't be keeping me on the janitorial staff after this. Ava smiled. Actually, I was thinking we might have an opening in our security consultation division. Flexible hours, decent pay, work that actually uses your skills. Interested? Lucas looked at her. You're serious. I spent the last 3 days breaking laws with you. Might as well keep breaking them together. Besides, I could use someone around who isn't afraid to tell me when I'm being an idiot. That's a full-time job on its own. Then it's good we're offering benefits. They stood in the parking lot while the sun climbed higher and the world woke up around them. Two people who'd been broken in different ways, who'd hidden from themselves and others, who'd forgotten how to be anything except what they thought they were supposed to be. I need to think about it, Lucas said. Take your time. Offer stands whenever you're ready. She walked back toward the building, back to the chaos of federal investigations and corporate damage control. Lucas watched her go and wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was a version of the future where he didn't have to choose between keeping Emma safe and actually living. He drove home slowly, taking the long way, watching the city come alive. People in coffee shops, kids waiting for school buses, construction crews starting their shifts, all of them existing in a world that had been seconds away from disaster and didn't even know it. That was fine. They didn't need to know. Some people fought so others could stay blissfully ignorant. It wasn't heroic, it was just necessary. Mrs. Chen met him at the door with Emma practically vibrating with excitement beside her. "Daddy!" Emma launched herself at him, and Lucas caught her, held her tight, felt the weight of her trust and love and uncomplicated joy at seeing him again. "Hey, Bug. You smell like smoke. Yeah, long night. Did you win?" Lucas thought about the team leader escaping with the prototype, thought about Webb heading to prison despite helping them, thought about the 4 dead soldiers whose justice would always be incomplete. "Sort of," he said. "We stopped the bad guys from doing something worse. That's a kind of winning." Emma pulled back to look at him. "But not the whole kind." "No, not the whole kind." "That's okay. Sometimes half winning is all you get." 7 years old, and she understood better than most adults. Lucas carried her inside, set her down at the kitchen table, started making the promised eggs with extra cheese. His phone rang. Reeves. "We got her," she said without preamble. "The team leader. Tried to cross into Canada with the prototype. Border Patrol flagged her. We swooped in. It's over, Grant. Really over." Lucas felt something loosen in his chest. "The prototype?" "Secured, undamaged, being transferred to a proper facility as we speak." "And Zenith?" "CEO's already lawyering up, but with Webb's testimony and the evidence we recovered, they're done. Company's going to be dismantled, assets seized, executives facing enough charges to put them away for decades." "What about the people who protected them? The ones inside the system who buried investigations?" Reeves was quiet for a moment. "That's a longer fight, but we're having it, slowly, carefully, the way it has to be done when you're fighting corruption from the inside. Will it be enough? Probably not, but it's better than nothing, and sometimes better than nothing is all we get." Emma was watching him from the table. Lucas turned back to the eggs, flipped them before they burned. "Thanks, Reeves, for showing up when you did. Thank you for not getting yourself killed. Emma needs her dad more than the world needs another dead hero." She hung up. Lucas finished the eggs, plated them, brought them to the table. Emma dug in immediately, making appreciative noises that suggested Mrs. Chen's cooking had been truly terrible. "These are good, Daddy." "Thanks, Bug. Are you going to be around more now? Or do you have to keep doing secret things?" Lucas thought about Ava's offer. Security consultation, flexible hours, work that mattered without requiring him to disappear for days at a time. "I think I'm going to be around more," he said. "Different job. Still helping people, but in a way that lets me be home for dinner." "Good. I like when you're home for dinner." "Me too." They ate in comfortable silence. Outside, the world kept turning. Somewhere, federal agents were processing arrests. Somewhere, executives were realizing their empires were crumbling. Somewhere, People were starting to understand that the system they'd trusted had failed them. But in Lucas's small apartment, none of that mattered. What mattered was eggs with extra cheese and a 7-year-old girl who'd learned too young that her dad was complicated but loved her anyway. 3 weeks later, Lucas showed up for his first day at Ava's newly restructured security division. Not as a consultant, turned out he didn't have the credentials for that, but as an analyst, someone who looked at systems and found the vulnerabilities before bad actors could. It was quiet work, methodical, the kind of thing that used his brain without requiring him to become someone he didn't want to be anymore. Ava stopped by his desk, actual desk, in an actual office, not a mop closet, around noon. "How's it going?" "Good. Found 3 potential entry points in your data security protocols. Wrote up recommendations." "Already? You've been here 4 hours. I'm efficient." "You're showing off." Lucas smiled. "Maybe a little." Ava sat on the edge of his desk. She looked different than she had 3 weeks ago. Still professional, still sharp, but less like she was wearing armor and more like she was just wearing clothes. "Henderson got released from the hospital yesterday," she said. "Wanted me to thank you, again, for saving his life. Just did what anyone would do. We both know that's not true, but I appreciate the humility." She stood to leave, then paused. "We're having a team thing Friday night. Dinner, drinks, mandatory fun. You should come. I've got Emma. Bring her. We're going to that place with the arcade. Kids are welcome." Lucas considered it. Social interaction. Normal people doing normal things. It felt foreign, like a language he'd once spoken but forgotten. "Okay," he said. "We'll be there." Friday came. Lucas picked Emma up from school, and they went to the restaurant where Ava's team was gathering. It was loud and chaotic and full of people who seemed to actually enjoy each other's company. Emma gravitated immediately to the arcade, dragging Lucas toward the games. They played skee-ball and air hockey and a racing game where Emma beat him 3 times in a row. "You're letting me win," she said. "Am not. R2, you're better at everything than me." "Not true. You're better at drawing and math and making friends and about 100 other things." Emma considered this. "But you're better at the important stuff, like keeping us safe." Lucas knelt down to her level. "Bug, listen to me. The important stuff isn't keeping us safe. The important stuff is being here, being honest, loving you even when everything else is falling apart. That's what matters." "Do you love me when I beat you at racing games?" "Especially then." Emma hugged him. "I love you too, Daddy, even when you're being weird." They played games for another hour before Emma got hungry, and they joined the others for pizza. Ava was there with people from her team, engineers, analysts, support staff, all of them talking and laughing like they'd forgotten they were supposed to be professional. Henderson showed up late, still moving carefully but alive. He spotted Lucas and came over. "Hey, the guy who saved my life. Hey, the guy who almost died on my shift." They shook hands. Henderson's grip was stronger than it had been in the demonstration hall. "I hear you're working for us now," Henderson said. "Security division." "Yeah, trying to make sure nobody has to save anybody else's life if we can prevent the crisis in the first place." "Noble goal. Let me know if you need help. I owe you." "You don't owe me anything. Just glad you're okay." Henderson moved on to talk to other people. Emma tugged on Lucas's sleeve. "He seems nice." "He is nice." "Is this what normal is like?" Lucas looked around the restaurant, at people eating pizza and playing games and enjoying each other's company without fear or violence or secrets hanging over them. "Yeah, Bug. I think this is what normal is like. I like it." "Me too." They stayed until Emma started yawning, then headed home. Lucas tucked her into bed, read her a chapter from the night story, kissed her forehead. "Daddy? Yeah? Are we going to stay here, or are we going to have to run again?" The question broke his heart. 7 years old, and she'd learned that home was temporary, that safety was conditional, that the people you loved could disappear. "We're staying," Lucas said. "No more running. This is home now." "Promise?" "Promise." Emma smiled, satisfied. She curled up with her rabbit and closed her eyes. Lucas sat in the living room afterward, thinking about promises and whether he had any right to make them. The world was still dangerous. Zenith was gone, but there would be others. People who wanted things that didn't belong to them, who were willing to hurt whoever stood in their way. But maybe that was okay. Maybe you didn't need perfect safety to build a life. Maybe you just needed to be present for the people who mattered, to show up when it counted, to choose connection over isolation even when it was scary. His phone buzzed, text from Ava. "Thanks for coming tonight. Emma's great. You should be proud." Lucas typed back. "Thanks for the invite. And the job. And not arresting me when you probably should have. Anytime. Well, not anytime. Don't make a habit of breaking into secure facilities. No promises." He set the phone down and looked around the small apartment. It was still cramped, still old, still held together with cheap repairs and hope. But it was theirs. And for the first time in 3 years, Lucas wasn't planning an exit strategy. He was planning to stay. 6 months passed. Emma turned 8 with a birthday party that included actual friends from school, not just neighbors who felt obligated. Lucas kept working at Archon, finding vulnerabilities and fixing them, using his skills to prevent disasters instead of surviving them. Ava's security division grew. They took on consulting contracts with other companies, built a reputation for thoroughness and discretion. Lucas found himself training new analysts, teaching them how to think like attackers so they could defend like professionals. Webb served 18 months in minimum security, then got released on parole for cooperation. He started a small cybersecurity firm that did ethical penetration testing. Lucas ran into him at a conference, and they had coffee, two people who'd been on opposite sides of the law finding common ground and trying to do better. Reeves called occasionally to check in. The corruption investigation was ongoing, slow and frustrating, but making progress. 3 senior officials had been forced to resign. 2 were facing criminal charges. It wasn't justice, but it was movement. Henderson went back to work full-time, though he moved to a different division where stress-induced cardiac events were less likely. He stopped by Lucas's office sometimes to talk about sports or weather, or nothing in particular, building a friendship based on the fact that they'd both survived something terrible and come out the other side. And Lucas went home every night to Emma, who was growing up too fast and asking harder questions but still loved strawberry ice cream and made up card games and stories about mice who didn't know they were too small to fight dragons. One evening, sitting on the couch after Emma had gone to bed, Lucas looked at the life they'd built and realized something he hadn't expected. He was happy, not perfectly happy, not without complications or worries or the occasional nightmare that reminded him who he used to be, but happy in the way that real people in real lives could be happy, with work that mattered, people who cared, a daughter who trusted him to show up. It wasn't the life he'd planned, wasn't the life he'd trained for, but it was better than both of those things because it was real. Emma wandered out of her room, unable to sleep. "Hey, Bug, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, just thinking." "About what?" She climbed onto the couch beside him. "About how you used to be sad a lot, and now you're not as much." "You noticed that?" "I notice everything. You taught me that." Lucas pulled her close. "Yeah, I guess I am less sad now." "Why?" "Because I stopped hiding, stopped pretending I was someone I wasn't. Turns out being honest is less exhausting than lying." Emma thought about this. Even when the truth is scary? Especially then. They sat together in the quiet apartment, father and daughter, 2 people who'd learned the hard way that running from your past just meant carrying it everywhere. That the only way to be free was to stop hiding and start building something worth staying for. Outside, the city hummed with life. People making choices, facing consequences, trying to be better than they were yesterday. Some would succeed, some would fail. All of them were doing their best with what they had. And in a small apartment where the carpet was worn and the walls needed paint, Lucas Grant held his daughter and understood that this, right here, right now, was everything he'd been fighting for. Not heroism, not redemption, not revenge. Just the quiet, imperfect, beautiful truth of being present for the people you loved. That was enough. It had always been enough. He just hadn't known it until he stopped running long enough to see what he already had.